Chapter 175. What happened to the Beast Master School on the Grand Cloud Mountain was not surprising. There were thousands of sects in the Wuxia League, and most of them inevitably had to deal with mortals. There were only a few sects like Kunlun Immortal Sect that didn't eat the common people's food. And as long as they had dealings, conflicts were inevitable, so it was not unusual. In addition, the sects in the Wuxia League were not few in number. The Beast Master School, which liked to associate with spirit beasts, was relatively mild. After all, the whole conflict was limited to injuring a few people, which damaged the face of the Grand Cloud Empire's imperial family and White Dragon Temple. If they were to encounter those truly extreme sects, they would directly tie a few low-level disciples to themselves with lava essence, exploding runes, and other such things, and then launch a suicide attack while shouting nonsense. That would be the most splendid scene. The only thing that could arouse Wang Lu's interest was the Beast Master School. As a third-rank sect, although it was at the bottom of the high-rank sects, it was still a high-rank sect. White Dragon Temple, Merciful Cloud Mountain, and the others were sects that had been around for thousands of years in the Grand Cloud Empire, but they were only fourth-rank sects, which belonged to the middle-rank sections. This gap was very important to Wang Lu because the efficiency of using high-rank sects to increase his reputation was not something that middle-rank sects could compare to. And according to the newly issued additional rule regarding the lead disciple in the Lingjian school, in addition to the title of lead disciple, if a disciple did something that boosted the sect's reputation, they would get corresponding points according to the impact and other factors. And by using these points, they could obtain a variety of sect titles granted by the Heavenly Sword Hall. After all, the number of lead disciple was limited, which was not conducive to stimulating the overall enthusiasm of the sect. However, there was no limit on the title, which could let 100 flowers bloom. And the sect title was not only an honor, but also a substantial reward. The Heavenly Sword Hall would, according to the characteristics of the title, forge the corresponding level equipment for the disciple, and how could the Heavenly Sword Hall's products be ordinary? High-rank magical treasures were not rare, and even spiritual treasures could be tailored. For the Wisdom Sect's leader with a net worth of hundreds of millions of spirit stones, spiritual treasures might not be too rare, but tailor-made spiritual treasures were not common. 800,000 spirit stones might be able to buy an 8th-rank spiritual treasure, but if he wanted to buy one that was as good as the Sword of Mount Kuan, even if Wang Lu invested 8 million spirit stones, it would still be difficult. This time, when he descended the mountain, he would grind up his reputation, unlock his title, and exchange for treasures. These were the most important things. According to the school's point system, if Wang Lu was able to flatten this beast-taming school's division, he would be able to earn more points than if he were to challenge the White Dragon Temple and Merciful Cloud Mountain. Of course, with Wang Lu's current ability, going to find a group of people founded by Taoist King Pil was no different from seeking his own death. Although the beast-taming school's reputation wasn't good, it wasn't evil. Going to cause trouble for them without rhyme or reason was unreasonable. Wang Lu pondered for a moment and decided to put this matter in his mind for the time being. While thinking, Yi Chuchen eagerly asked, "Mr. Director, could it be that the Spirit Sword Immortals and the Beast-Taming School have some kind of friendship with each other?" Wang Lu frowned. "No, we don't have any kind of friendship with anyone. We're just a lone wolf." Yi Chuchen hesitated. Should he praise the Lingjian School for being noble and virtuous, or should he join the director in ridiculing the sect? The scale was really hard to grasp. After thinking about it, the vice sect leader decided to change the topic. "Then I wonder who is Mr. Director going to send the letter to? Although the Wisdom Sect hasn't opened up their territory in the Grand Cloud Empire, it's still convenient to inquire about some information." Wang Lu looked at the letter in his hand and said, "I haven't seen that person before. I only heard a few words from my master. However, from the name, it should be a bald man."
Zen?
Yi Chuchen felt strange. There are not many Zen cultivators in the Grand Cloud Empire. There's not even a Zen sect in the vicinity of the Grand Cloud Mountain. Could it be a loose cultivator? But it doesn't matter. Can you tell me the name of that master? Perhaps I know it. Go Rua. Yi Chuchen froze for a long time and then softly asked, "What?" Have you heard of Zen Master Go Rua?
Eh.
This subordinate is ignorant and inexperienced, so I really haven't heard of it. However, I can mobilize the Wisdom Sect's disciples, or ask the Wanxian League-related organization in the Grand Cloud Empire. Before he could finish, Wang Lu coldly glanced at him, as if he was looking at an idiot. This time, find a city near the Grand Cloud Mountain and stop there. After that, you don't need to care about it and you don't need to inquire about the information. Yi Chu-chun was startled, and then he secretly scolded himself for being muddle-headed. Wang Lu was very likely to find trouble with the third-rank beast taming school. If the Wisdom Sect insisted on playing a role in this, once it was discovered, he couldn't afford the consequences. A day later, the Cloud Wave boat landed in the Grand Cloud Empire's territory, outside the Moral Enlightenment City on the southern side of the Grand Cloud Mountain. The Moral Enlightenment City was a prefectural city in the Grand Cloud Empire. Its scale was huge, and its population was in the millions. Inside the city, it was bustling with traffic. Moreover, what made Yi Chu-chun amazed was that this city was filled with the aura of cultivators. In addition to those ordinary houses with exquisite workmanship and materials, there were also a lot of cultivators' residences. For example, there were no less than 10 floating courtyards. However, the residents of the city regarded this as normal. Obviously, they had long adapted to it. And this was just a prefectural city in the Grand Cloud Empire. If it were the capital, it was unknown how prosperous it would be. Yi Chu-chun couldn't help but sigh. Alas, this is indeed the Cloud region. A prefectural city has such a scene. Even the capital of the Great Ming country is quite inferior to it. No wonder people say that the Blue River region is the weakest in the 9 regions. There is indeed a gap. Wang Lu said, if there's a gap, then catch up. What's the use of sighing about it? Or, do you want to jump ship and emigrate? Yi Chu-chun knew that he had repeatedly said the wrong things, which had deducted a lot of points in the leader's heart. Thus, while secretly cursing himself for being stupid, he tactfully excused himself, no longer bothering Wang Lu. After Yi Chu-chun left, Wang Lu used a spell to put the Cloud Wave boat into his mustard seed bag. After that, he didn't hurry to enter the city. Instead, he carefully looked at the vast city outside the city. He always felt that there was something wrong with this city. Therefore, he reached out and patted Lu Li. Little Lu Li, tell me your opinion. Lu Li wrinkled her nose. Her clear eyes reflected the outline of the city. Perhaps Lu Li would never be as smart and quick-witted as others, but because of her extremely simple temperament, she could keenly perceive the essence of things. 5 years ago, in the duel on the Grand Cloud platform, Lu Li was even earlier than the elders in the audience that Wang Lu had the big heart demon oath as well as the ability to reach the foundation establishment stage. Her insight was outstanding. Seems to be sick. A moment later, Lu Li gave a simple and crisp conclusion. Then, she took out the beef and happily ate it. Sick. Wang Lu pondered for a moment and had a general guess in his heart. Very well, let's go into the city first. This kind of bustling city should have local delicacies, right? Lu Li cheered. Okay. The model dog also began to bark non-stop, full of joy. After 1 person and 2 pets entered the city, they didn't show their cultivator identity. Just like the foreign tourists that could be seen everywhere in the Moral Enlightenment City, they curiously wandered around the city. Along the way, Wang Lu bought snacks for Lu Li and the stupid dog. The eating habits of the Cloud region and the Blue River region were indeed quite different, and the food in the city had its own characteristics. However, after walking 3 to 5 streets, Wang Lu found an unsurprising rule. Meat was extremely rare. In a cold-cooked meat shop, Wang Lu asked for a few sausages and a few large pieces of smoked meat. While paying the bill, he casually asked, "Boss, do you have braised dog meat?" As soon as his voice fell, the face of the meat shop owner, who was as sturdy as an iron tower, changed dramatically. He subconsciously wanted to reach out and push Wang Lu out of the shop. However, at this time, Wang Lu had already taken the sausages and was still paying. If he were to be pushed out like this, the business would be in vain. Thereupon, the boss hurriedly took a few steps forward, closed the shop door, and then angrily complained, "You two customers are really... It's fine if you're looking for trouble, but don't implicate me. Seeing you with a dog, I thought you were... I didn't expect you to be so insensible." Wang Lu was surprised. "Boss, what are you talking about? Buying a pile of your things, and you're complaining instead? That's fine, I don't want that pile of sausages and smoked meat anymore. I'm leaving." The boss pulled back Wang Lu. "You don't know what's good for you. I'm telling you, you can say whatever you want in other places, but in this moral enlightenment city, it's best not to mention dog meat." He paused for a moment, and then said with a helpless expression, "Not to mention dog meat, it's better to eat less of any kind of meat. I'm afraid that in a few years, everyone in this moral enlightenment city will become vegetarian." Wang Lu asked, "What's the reason for this?" "I've heard that this moral enlightenment city is famous far and near as a gourmet city. How did it become a vegetarian city?" The meat shop owner stuck his head out of the door and looked around. After confirming that there was no one around, he sat down and complained, "Isn't it because of that group of cultivators? You're an outsider, so you don't know. More than a year ago, a group of cultivators from the Beast Master School came to the Grand Cloud Mountain to the north of this moral enlightenment city. Then they went around saying that this meat can't be eaten, that meat can't be eaten, and that the rules are greater than the law. Although they can't find trouble with you in the open, they can still make things difficult for you in the dark." Wang Lu was amused. "Beast Master School? Don't tell me they rely on steamed buns and flour rolls to raise spirit beasts. Don't those fierce spirit beasts also eat meat as food?" "Hee, who says they don't? Unfortunately, in their eyes, we common people can't even compare to the birds and beasts they raise," the boss said, feeling even more vexed. "My shop 2 years ago was still the best business shop in this area. Now, you see, how many people still come to visit?" Wang Lu nodded. "Then I have to thank you, boss, for reminding me. But it's actually not a big deal, right?" The boss said, "Yes, it's not like we can't eat any meat. Moreover, even if we don't eat meat, people won't die. Therefore, although everyone complains, their days can still go on. It's a pity that I, your father, have spent my entire life in this area, but I don't know how to eat in the future. It's just starting from the beginning." Hearing this, Wang Lu felt that he had already gathered enough information. He no longer chatted with the boss and went straight out the door. The Beast Master School's influence in Moral Enlightenment City was still limited. Otherwise, just based on the boss' criticism of the Beast Master School just now, he would be courting death. That being the case, as long as he didn't take the initiative to stir up trouble in the city, there wouldn't be any trouble. In theory. Chapter 176. Coming out from the butcher shop, Wang Lu and his 2 best friends went to the city center. After confirming the basic environment of the city, Wang Lu felt relieved. Beast Master School's control over the Moral Enlightenment City was limited, and presumably, this division didn't regard this place as important. Most of their main force was in the vicinity of the Grand Cloud Mountain. Here, the ones promoting vegetarianism were mostly a few Qi cultivating stage and foundation establishment stage juniors. The only troublesome problem was that, if these juniors were allowed to create a storm in the city, it could be seen that the influence of the local forces and even the Wanxian League was even weaker. He also didn't know if the relevant service organizations had closed down. For a city the size of the Moral Enlightenment City, generally, the Wanxian League or the local big sects would set up an office here to receive wandering cultivators from all over the world. When Wang Lu was outside the city, he saw that there were more than 10 floating courtyards in the city center, as well as a large number of immortal cultivation facilities. It could be seen that the existence of cultivators was very common here, so there shouldn't be a shortage of offices. However, now that there were people from the Beast Master School coming to stir up trouble, things might not go so smoothly. After walking for half an hour, plus several times asking for directions, Wang Lu finally found the Wanxian League office in the Moral Enlightenment City. It was a simple and exquisite small building, with a plaque hanging on the door, Wanxian League Yunzhou Division Cloud Platform Hall Moral Enlightenment City Office. Well, obviously, the person in charge of this Yunzhou division was deeply influenced by the vernacular movement. Even the signboard was very approachable. The people of the Moral Enlightenment City were obviously familiar with this small building. Although it was located in the city center, there were not many pedestrians around, and there were no guards at the door. Wang Lu confidently entered the door and saw a spacious hall inside the building. A 23 or 24-year-old girl was sitting behind the counter. Her expression was somewhat lazy and indifferent. Seeing Wang Lu and the others come in, she hung a smile that was seriously lacking in warmth. "To Daoist friends, welcome to the Moral Enlightenment City. Please register here according to the regulations, and then you can receive a guidebook prepared by me and enjoy the corresponding specifications of convenient services." This was basically the general rule of the Wanxian League. Wang Lu took out his and Luli's documents from his mustard seed bag and handed them over, waiting for the verification. "Oh, you Lu, you Xian, people from the Sky Water Lakes Yu clan?" The girl in charge of reception used a spell to read the information in the certificate. Seeing the unique seal of the Yu clan of the Celestial Water Lake, she couldn't help but nod. Celestial Water Lake is a cultivation family. Although it's not very strong, it has a long history and can barely be considered a famous family, at least a regional famous family. The two cultivators in front of her seemed to be mediocre, but since they're from a famous family, they at least know the rules and etiquette and won't cause any trouble. However, he didn't expect that the two golden documents in his hands were forged by Yu Xinyao under the request of Wang Lu. In this trip to the north to Cloud State, at least at the beginning, Wang Lu planned to keep a low profile. The few of them came here on the Cloudwave boat. After entering the boundary of Cloud State, they activated the formation inside the boat to disguise themselves, hiding the cloud's silver coating on the surface. It looked like an ordinary second-hand flying boat, which was in line with the identity of Yu Clan's cultivators. "Here are 2 guidebooks. Please keep them." They explain in detail the basic situation of the Moral Enlightenment City and its surrounding areas, as well as the matters to pay attention to. In addition, Wang Lu didn't wait for the receptionist girl to finish her words and directly handed over 3 spirit stones. "I also want a senior guidebook." Seeing the spirit stones, the girl's eyes lit up. She quickly pulled out an obviously heavier book from the counter. The information recorded on it was more comprehensive and more important, so of course, it wouldn't be free. However, one book was only 2 spirit stones, so the extra spirit stone could be counted as her extra income. Wang Lu took the senior guidebook and put it away without looking at it. Then, he handed over another spirit stone. "I want to find someone." The girl was startled, and then her face revealed a difficult expression. "This, I won't hide it from you. If it was 1 or 2 years ago, let alone looking for someone, as long as you can afford it, we can even buy someone. But now, the Wanxian League is preparing to withdraw from the Moral Enlightenment City. Although the basic business of the office is still preserved, there is no one left to continue doing it. Even if you pay the advance payment, it will be very difficult for us to produce results." Although she said that, the young lady quietly took the spirit stone. Wang Lu nodded and said, "I see that the office in the Moral Enlightenment City is indeed somewhat dilapidated. However, although a lot of the business can't be done, I've stayed here for several years. If it's simple information, I can also help you investigate," the girl said, her eyes sparkling. Wang Lu smiled and handed over another 5 spirit stones. "I want to find a person called Zen Master Go Rua." "Zen Master Go Rua?" The girl immediately frowned. I haven't heard of any famous Zen cultivators in the vicinity." Holding the 5 spirit stones in her hand, the girl didn't want to let go, but she really couldn't think of any Zen Master Go Rua. Her heart gradually became anxious. Although this Yu family's little handsome boy was extravagant, he wasn't a fool. It was good for her to earn some extra money, but if she angered him, now there weren't many people in the office who could help her. In the midst of her anxiety, the girl suddenly saw the mottled dog at Wang Lu's feet, gnawing on a bone. Her eyes couldn't help but shine. "I don't know the person you're looking for, but I can give you a piece of information," the girl said somewhat proudly. "In this Moral Enlightenment City, or even the surroundings of the Grand Cloud Mountain, it's best not to release your spirit pets so openly, especially spirit dogs." Wang Lu asked, "What's the reason for this?" The girl cautiously leaned forward and softly said, It's because of the Beast Master School. You know the Beast Master School, right? Recently, they've been collecting all kinds of spirit pets, especially spirit dogs. They collect them on site, and they even take them by force. Wang Lu smiled and kicked the stupid dog's hind leg. Collecting spirit dogs? They probably don't like this kind of modeled breed. The girl shook her head. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I heard that as long as they have intelligence, they can be classified as spirit pets. They'll collect them. It seems like they're making some big move. Wang Lu asked, are they planning to make 100-dog feast? The girl was taken aback. Don't talk nonsense. However, the warning came too late. From outside the building, they heard two cold snorts. Two white-clothed women coldly looked at each other. The Wuxia League girl was startled and quickly said, today the office is closing early. I'm going to close. Wang Lu didn't care. He patted Lu Li, who was eating snacks, and kicked the mottled stupid dog. Let's go. Outside the door, the two white-clothed women happened to block his way. Their eyes were quite unkind. Wang Lu also looked at them. Needless to say, they were most likely fellow Taoists of the Beast Master School. The two of them looked 26 or 27, and their cultivation base was around middle-level foundation establishment. Based on this speculation, even in the Beast Master School, their aptitude was only mediocre. After all, although they looked 26 or 27, they were actually more than 30 years old. Even the everlasting appearance technique couldn't save them, so their aptitude couldn't be said to be good. In particular, there was Lu Li, who had been cultivating for more than 10 years. Her actual biological age was 25 or 26, but she looked exactly the same as when she was 15 or 16 years old. Moreover, it was likely that there would be no big change in her appearance. The contrast was too strong. The two middle-aged women stared at Wang Lu for a while, and then the one with the bigger face warned, be careful what you say in the future. You also have a spirit pet, so there's no need to say those cheap jokes. Then they ignored him because when they were outside the door, they also heard the origin of Wang Lu and Lu Li. The Celestial Water Lakes Yu family was not strong, but it was still an immortal cultivation family, so there was no need to make a big fuss just because of a joke. However, when she was about to turn around and leave, the other woman pulled her sleeve. The big-faced woman was slightly startled. Her eyes followed her junior sister's finger and was immediately startled. At this time, Wang Lu was not in the mood to talk nonsense with the two middle-aged women. He turned around to leave, but just as he took a step, he heard the big-faced woman behind him open her mouth. Fellow Taoist, please wait. What the hell? Wang Lu was inexplicably shocked. In broad daylight, under the bright sky, these two ugly middle-aged women actually wanted to conspire against him? Are you Beast Master School or Yin and Yang School? Why are you so thirsty? However, the next moment, the big-faced woman pointed her finger at the model dog at Wang Lu's feet. May I ask, fellow Taoist, this little guy should be your pet? I wonder if you can part with it? Wang Lu frowned. Part with it? Then he kicked the stupid dog. Hey, he said, he wants me to do a sterilization operation for you, what do you think? The stupid dog woof. In a state of shock, it directly bit off the big soy sauce bone. The big-faced woman twisted her eyebrows. I mean, this thing is destined to be with my Beast Master School, so we intend to buy it. Wang Lu smiled. How much money do you want to pay? The big-faced woman hesitated for a moment. Because he could see that the opposite party was not a poor cultivator, it was unrealistic to offer too low a price. I'll pay 1,000 spirit stones. While shouting, the big-faced woman felt pain all over her body. That was her savings of several years. Wang Lu replied with a smile that said, Pauper Scram, turned around, and was about to leave. Wait, 2,000. It was the junior sister who opened her mouth to increase the price. As a cultivator of the Beast Master School, their cultivation could not be considered high, but their ability to distinguish spirit beasts was quite good. The model dog at Wang Lu's feet did not look special, but there was an astonishing power hidden inside its body. Although they could not distinguish its breed, they could at least confirm that it was not an ordinary one. Such a spirit beast for a Miryu clan to raise was really a waste. If they could take it, and offer it to the elders of their school, they could enjoy endless benefits. Now, with 2,000 spirit stones, they could at least get 10 or 20 times the profit. Unfortunately, Wang Lu did not care about these 1 or 2,000 spirit stones. He walked away with large strides, without the slightest reluctance. The senior sister and junior sister looked at each other in dismay. Just as they were thinking about what other valuable things they had on them, they saw Wang Lu stop his footsteps and turn around to ask a question. Money? I don't lack it, but I want to find someone. The senior sister was overjoyed and quickly said, Rest assured, the surrounding area of the Grand Cloud Mountain has long been our Beast Master School's territory. Even if it's an insect, we can still find it. I want to find Zen Master Go Rua. Zen Master Go Rua? The woman with the big round face looked embarrassed. Obviously, she had never heard of such a baldy. The junior sister's eyes turned, but she smiled and said, I seem to have some impression of him. Wang Lu raised his eyebrows. Oh. Yes, I heard Master mention him. He's an expert. The junior sister said while carefully observing the other's reaction. Unfortunately, Wang Lu's expression was cold, and she couldn't see any change. This is not the place to talk. Why don't we find a place to have a cup of tea? While saying that, she tried to put on a seductive posture. This junior sister was indeed more beautiful than her senior sister. At the same time, her eyes couldn't help but flash with an ominous glint. In this moral enlightenment city, there were still a few areas where the Beast Master School could do whatever they wanted. Wang Lu was stunned for a moment. Then he very decisively reached out and put his arm around Li's shoulder. Sorry, I already have someone I like. Chapter 177. Faced with Wang Lu's sudden reaction, the female cultivators of Beast Master School were immediately stunned. The big-faced woman pointed at Wang Lu and Lu Li in a daze. You said you have someone you like, but aren't you from the same families? Wang Lu nodded. Yes, this is my sister. I'm an incurable siscon. Every day, I have to use my sister's underwear as my pillow to sleep. Are you satisfied now? With that, he turned around and walked away, no longer paying attention to the two people who were trying to get something for nothing but obviously had no capital and no IQ. The two people were already shocked by Wang Lu's declaration of love. Without saying a word, they stood in place. When they came back to their senses, the two people and the dog had already gone far away. Wang Lu, just now you said I'm your sister, but I'm obviously older than you. On the road, Lu Li suddenly opened her mouth and asked a question that had puzzled her for a long time. Wang Lu touched her head. But your IQ is lower than mine, so you're my sister. Oh, is that so? Lu Li nodded in understanding and tried to record this reasoning process. A moment later, she asked, What do you mean by siscon? Siscon is the one who controls the younger sister. You see, fourth uncle also told you to listen to me when you go down the mountain, right? Oh, so that's how it is? Lu Li continued to nod. What about sleeping on my sister's underwear? Wang Lu was silent for a moment. This question involves a profound cultivation method. For the current you, it's still too difficult. Later, if there's an opportunity, I'll tell you. Good. After dealing with Lu Li, Wang Lu decided not to stay in the Moral Enlightenment City for long. Although he managed to fool the two female cultivators of Beast Master School, the other party obviously wouldn't give up. After all, the cultivation base of Wang Lu and Lu Li was currently high-level chi cultivating stage. Going out, especially in a relatively chaotic place like Cloud Region, being too outstanding was also a kind of trouble. It would give the other party a reason to take risks out of desperation. The Yu clan's identity was not considered to be a deterrent within the borders of Cloud State. At least, it was not as strong as the beast-taming sect's name. Looking at it from a comprehensive point of view, there was a 70 to 80% chance that the other party would take the risk out of desperation. Speaking of fear, Wang Lu was certainly not afraid. Not to mention that the other party was merely in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Even if a middle stage Shudon stage cultivator came, Wang Lu would still be able to deal with the opponent in 3 to 5 rounds if he was serious. However, before he went down the mountain, sect head uncle specifically looked for him and told him one thing. Wang Lu, you have been cultivating in Spirit Sword Mountain for 10 years. In these 10 years, you have surprised everyone on the mountain. Even among the 5 uniques of the Wuxia League, your performance is the best. Whether it was the cultivation method or other aspects. I don't want to say that this is necessarily a bad thing, but you're still young, so there's no need to lock your own style. This time, when you go down the mountain, I hope you can promise me one thing. No matter what problem you encounter, make a concession once. Of course, only once. After making a concession, if the other party is still aggressive, you can solve the problem in your own way. At that time, Wang Lu thought for a moment and then asked, can this be regarded as a challenge task arranged by the sect? Sect head Taoist master said with a smile, very well, consider it as a higher requirement for your experiential learning. If you can successfully complete the challenge, naturally you'll get the corresponding reward points. In accordance with the original agreement, Wang Lu chose to make a concession in front of the office building. Of course, only in his own eyes could it be counted as a concession. Right now, Wang Lu chose to go out of the city. On one hand, although this moral enlightenment city was big, if he wanted to inquire about the news of Zen Master Go Rua, it was mostly hopeless. The Wuxia League didn't know, and neither did the Beast Master School. The identity of this Zen Master Go Rua was much more mysterious than he expected. Perhaps only by going to the Grand Cloud Mountain himself could he find the clue. On the other hand, although according to the rules, he had to choose to make a concession in the first possible conflict, but at that time, it didn't say that he couldn't fish. If he took Lu Li and the model dog out of the city, if the 2 women were tactful, then everything would be fine. If not, Wang Lu looked at Lu Li and the stupid dog beside him. After practicing the fighting method for many days on the mountain, he finally had a chance to put it to use. The female cultivator of Beast Master School did not let Wang Lu down. Not long after he went out of the city, in the woods, Wang Lu was intercepted by the 2 of them. Of course, this wasn't strange at all, because the stupid dog still had the tracking spell that they had cast on it. Beast Master School's Spirit Beast-related spell was one of the best in the Wuxia League. Even the cultivators of the 10,000 Arts sect often cooperated with the Beast Master School in related aspects. The cultivation of the 2 women was mediocre, but their technique was quite brilliant. If not for Wang Lu and Lu Li's level of cultivators, they wouldn't have been easily discovered. Fellow Taoist, please wait. The same words were said for the second time, without the previous restraint and politeness. The 2 female cultivators looked solemn, as if they were afraid that others wouldn't see that they were robbers. Even the senior sister with the big round face directly took out her magical tool, a glittering golden whip. However, the first one to open her mouth was the prettier junior sister. She reluctantly hung a smile, trying to be polite before resorting to force. Fellow Taoist, previously in the city, you left in a hurry, so I haven't had the time to finish my words. The spirit dog beside you is fated with my Beast Master School, so, no matter what, I hope you can part with it. Wang Lu smiled. Fated?
Why don't you tell me about it?
That junior sister had obviously done her homework. She earnestly said, fellow Taoist must have heard of the reputation of my Beast Master School. In terms of training and training Spirit Beast, we are second to none in the 9 regions. Although your family also has its own specialty, it's not good at beast taming. And then, your spirit dog is innately supernatural. If it can be properly trained, its future is limitless. Forgive me for my rudeness, but if you raise it like this, I'm afraid it will be wasted, a reckless waste of God's gift. And then, the junior sister frowned, and then, if you really want it well, then naturally you should give it a better future, instead of using the reason of years of affection, and so on to bind it. Wang Lu almost spurted out blood, thinking, where did this woman find these lines? Even if I'm really a siscon, it's absolutely impossible for me to like this human beast thing. However, after spurting out the rice, Wang Lu didn't forget to retort, according to your words, if a man really loves a woman, he must find a way to give her a strong aphrodisiac, and then take advantage of the night to throw her on the bed of a tall, rich, and handsome man. If he can get pregnant with a child, in the future, There will be no lack of glory, splendor, and wealth. At the same time, a man should hide outside the window, listening to his beloved woman being fucked by a tall, rich, and handsome man. Is this the rhythm? With that, Wang Lu let go of Lu Li's ears and waited for the response of the two middle-aged women. After a while, that junior sister fiercely said, "A despicable and vulgar master like you doesn't deserve to have a spirit pet." At the same time, the magical tool in her hand gradually lit up, and the situation became more and more dangerous. Wang Lu ridiculed, "Since you want to be a whore, then don't give me a chastity arch blocking the road and snatching the dog," yet still saying it in such a dignified way. "You're really worthy to be from a small animal rights organization." The two female cultivators no longer answered. At this point, what else could they do but make their move? The two of them carefully stared at each other and found that the other party's attention was focused on the magical tool in their hand, so they couldn't help but feel relieved. They were probably the newcomers of the Yu family who had just gone out for experiential learning, so their experience was seriously insufficient. How could they focus on the cultivators of the Beast Master School? However, when they were about to sneer and make their move, they suddenly heard the girl named Yu Xian say with a smile, "What a cute puppy." With that, she took 2 steps forward, bent her body, and stretched out her hand. The light distorted, and an unwilling white-haired puppy was pressed by Lu Li's hand on its head, and then it could no longer move. The complexion of the two female cultivators suddenly changed. The invisible white-haired dog was the most proud spirit pet of senior sister Chen Dongji. Its ability to hide itself was so great that even Shudon stage cultivators would not be able to detect it. It was a good weapon for sneak attacks. Unexpectedly, before the fight had even started, it had been pulled out by the opponent's seemingly innocent little girl. At this time, looking at Yu Xian's innocent smile, the two female cultivators of the Beast Master School felt a chill in their hearts. This person, is she really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? Wang Lu was not surprised at all. Not to mention that invisible dog, even he could see through it. With Lu Li's heaven-defying insight, even in the Spirit Sword Mountain, without the King Pill level method, it would be impossible to hide from her eyes. And these two female cultivators of the Beast Master School had the arrogance of robbing them, but their strength was too low. Xian Air. Wang Lu resisted the nauseating feeling all over his body, and I came up with such a name. Huh. Lu Li didn't care at all. She happily teased the puppy in her hand. Seeing that the other party was trembling in fear, she even tried to feed it snacks. In this urgent situation, it actually showed a bit of childlike warmth. But Wang Lu's next sentence completely destroyed this atmosphere. "The one in your hand is tonight's dinner." Lu Li gawked and subconsciously made a swallowing action. The invisible white dog that was stroked by her delicate hand finally couldn't bear the despair and simply fainted. "Junior sister, do it!" Chen Dongji roared. The whip in her hand turned into a mass of golden cloud. Even though most of her ability came from her spirit beast, as a foundation establishment cultivator of a high-rank sect, her own skill was definitely not weak. Unfortunately, it depended on who she was compared with. Xian Air, do it. Although the order came later than the opponent, Lu Li's reaction was too fast. Before Wang Lu's voice fell, the girl's flying sword had already directly pierced through Chen Dongji's golden cloud, breaking her original magical tool and causing the woman to suddenly spurt out a mouthful of blood. Then the sword light turned and deftly landed on the side of the junior sister's neck. With just a touch, her whole body's defensive spell was completely broken. The junior sister didn't even have the time to call her spirit beast for help before she could no longer say even half a word. After defeating the two female cultivators, Lu Li retrieved her flying sword and single-handedly picked up the unconscious puppy. After sizing it up, she somewhat embarrassedly turned her head and asked, "Do you really want to eat this little guy tonight?" Before Wang Lu had the time to speak, he heard Lu Li pleadingly said, "Don't eat it, okay, brother? Brother." Wang Lu felt a buzzing sound in his head. You idiot, actually used your killing move on your own people at this time?" Chapter 178. When the stupid Li unleashed her big move on her own people, Wang Lu really couldn't resist it. He froze for a moment, and it was at this moment that the two female cultivators of Beast Master School narrowed their eyes. Go! Then two golden lights flashed. As a low-level disciple of Beast Master School, the life-saving talisman was activated. The escape talisman wrapped the two people into a ball and quickly flew away. Li looked at the ball of golden light that flew away. Although she could immediately intercept it, the girl didn't pay attention to it. Instead, she continued to stare at Wang Lu with her big watery eyes, expressing her pleading will. Wang Lu unceremoniously reached out and slapped her on the head. Idiot! Because she had long been accustomed to such criticism, Li didn't try to feel wronged anymore. She just sincerely asked, "I'm sorry, did I do something wrong?" Wang Lu sighed. Two things. First, you're one of the top sword cultivators in the Lingjian school, and even in the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions. You must have your own strength of character, reserved and domineering aura. In short, don't act spoiled. Second, do I look like a person who will eat anything? With that, Wang Lu pointed at the little white dog that was left behind by the two female cultivators of Beast Master School. This thing is our captive. I'll treat you to something else for dinner. Li breathed a sigh of relief. I know you're the best, brother. Wang Lu suddenly felt an irresistible chill from his non-phase sword bone.
Oh.
Don't call me brother. But didn't you say I'm your sister? My sister can't be so cute. Later on, you can just call me senior brother. In any case, I'm the lead disciple of the sect, so I'm half a level lower than you. Okay. Although she couldn't understand it, Li had an excellent advantage, which was that she never asked why. After dealing with Li, Wang Lu splashed the captive invisible white dog with cold water. Resuscitation. The puppy immediately turned invisible and tried to escape. As a result, just as half of its body turned invisible, it saw a pair of red eyes staring at it. It was a spirit dog with mixed fur that was about the same size as him. It looked silly and had a piece of marinated bone in its mouth. However, the small body seemed to hide a hell. The terrifying might it gave off almost caused the puppy's soul to freeze, and the instinctive technique it cast was disrupted and rendered ineffective. The mottled dog glanced at it and snorted in disdain. Its mouth continued to chew on the bone, as if it was saying, if you dare to run, this bone will be your end. Little White whimpered and raised its head to look at Wang Lu and Li. Its eyes revealed a begging look. Wang Lu saw that the other party was already well behaved, so he nodded and said, "Can you speak human language?" The little white dog shook its head in fear. Don't worry, Bien, you translate. Wang Lu kicked the stupid dog. The stupid dog unwillingly shook its body and spat out the bone. Really King troublesome. Then it barked at the little white dog. The little white dog trembled and whimpered for a while, and then pitifully waited for its punishment. Bien pondered for a moment, and then said to Wang Lu, "This grandson is called Little White, the spirit pet of that female cultivator. He is willing to surrender, but because of the contract with Master, he can't say anything about Master and the sect." Wang Lu was amused. This little thing has no moral integrity, surrendering so quickly. As for the contract, Xian do it. Li reached out and touched Little White's head. The little thing suddenly felt a sharp sword intent enter its primordial spirit along the top of its head. However, it cleverly avoided all the vital parts and directly touched an invisible extension line. The next moment, Little White felt its primordial spirit loosen, and a certain force that had bound it for many years disappeared. The contract between it and its master was actually lifted. Li's brilliant sword heart could cut everything in the world, and the contract force of Beast Master School was naturally no exception. Without the binding of the contract, Little White soon sold out its master's situation without any moral integrity. Wang Lu had no interest in the privacy of the two middle-aged women, but their motive for not hesitating to become bandits to intercept the dog was very interesting. In fact, from the beginning, Wang Lu thought that it was not unusual for the Beast Master School to be hated by the people in the Moral Enlightenment City. However, for the two middle-aged women to openly rob the road, there must be some interest driving them. No matter what, the Beast Master School was still a righteous sect. For their disciples to openly rob a cultivator from an immortal cultivator family, the risk they had to bear was really huge. Without any interest driving them, it was impossible. And from Little White's mouth, Wang Lu learned that the Beast Master School was recently carrying out a large-scale operation. The entire division, from top to bottom, nearly 1,000 people were involved in it. And the big-faced woman and other disciples were assigned a strange task: to collect various kinds of spirit dogs and bring them back to the mountain. Moreover, this task was quite urgent. For this reason, the elder who was in charge of the big-faced woman even clearly said, "As long as it's a good dog, no matter what, bring it back to the mountain. There will be a generous reward. If anything happens, I will take responsibility for it." Forcing a prestigious sect to issue a robbery declaration, it could be seen that the Beast Master School was really in desperate need of spirit dogs. However, this was even more strange. In the Wuxia League, among the tens of thousands of sects, there was probably no one who was better at taming spirit beasts than the Beast Master School. Moreover, the Beast Master School had always been the biggest seller in the spirit beast market, so how could they be in urgent need of spirit dogs? Unfortunately, if he continued to ask, Little White would be powerless. After all, he was just a dog, so he didn't know too much about it. However, this information was enough for Wang Lu. Since the Beast Master School's demand for spirit dogs has reached the level of hunger, then we probably don't need to do anything. The reputation value will come knocking on our door. At the same time, on the Grand Cloud Mountain, Qindongji and her junior sister were trembling. Lowering their heads and looking down, they resisted the anger of their master to keep standing. In other words, not only did you fail to bring back that rare breed, you even lost your own spirit dog. A tall and sturdy man with a bare upper body and bulging muscles coldly questioned. Qindongji replied with a trembling voice, "Disciple is incompetent and has lost face for the sect. I am willing to accept punishment from the elder." That sturdy man sneered. "Punishment? Even if I dismember the two of you into 10,000 pieces, so what? It sounds nice, but if I really punish you according to the sect rules, you two will still cry and beg me to spare your lives." The senior sister and junior sister's hearts sank, simultaneously considering whether or not they should kneel down and beg for mercy. "Forget it. This time the opponent's strength is too much stronger than you. Even my sex beast taming contract was broken by them, so it's not strange that you are not their match. Only, when did the celestial water lakes you family produce such a strong disciple?" The elder muttered to himself, his brows gradually knitted together. The junior sister boldly said, "Master, although those two people are powerful, their cultivation is still low, so there's nothing to worry about. Moreover, they broke the contract, thinking that their trick succeeded, but in fact, they revealed a flaw. Little White comes from the beast taming school, so it's not difficult for us to trace its position. If we follow the clues, we will definitely be able to find that strange spirit dog." The muscular elder glanced at her. "You're going to find it?" The junior sister was suddenly speechless. This disciple's cultivation is low. I'm afraid they are not their match, so you want me to act? Humph. This kind of aristocratic family's disciple is the most troublesome. If you beat the young one, the old one will come out. Although the rumor says that the Celestial Water Lakes U family is only a marginal aristocratic family, but to be able to cultivate such a disciple, how can it be simple? Right now, our branch's matters are urgent, so there's no need to complicate matters. But it's strange. Why did they come to the Grand Cloud Mountain? The junior sister boldly said, "I remember that person said he wanted to find a person called Zen Master Go Rua." Zen Master Go Rua? The elder frowned and repeated this name a few times. Suddenly, his expression changed. Zen Master Go Rua. F***CK. It's clearly Zen Master Dog Meat, that son of a bitch. You're even giving me an accent? You too, tell me the characteristics of those two people in detail again. After listening to the two female disciples, the elder still had no clue. But after thinking about it, his anger won over his usual caution. Forget it. Let's first capture those two people. If we can hang that bastard, that's naturally the best. If we recognize the wrong person, worst comes to worst, I'll go to Celestial Water Lake to apologize. The Yu family won't be able to say anything. The two female disciples' hearts immediately calmed down, but the junior sister rolled her eyes and asked, Master, that strange mongrel spirit dog, their Celestial Water Lake has never been good at beast taming. Giving that rare spirit dog to them is a reckless waste of natural resources. If they really love that spirit dog, they should know the principle of obediently letting go. In other words, after capturing the two of them this time, he naturally wouldn't spit out the spirit hound or whatever. Seeing that her master agreed to help, the big-faced female cultivator immediately raised her eyebrows. Her magical weapon was destroyed by Lu Li's sword, which made her quite distressed. After thinking for a while, she suggested, Master, I think that Yu Xian's flying sword is also extraordinary. Do you want to? The elder angrily said, Our Beast Master School is not a bandit sect. If you want that spirit dog, you still have a good reason to do so, but if you want to take other people's magical weapon for your own use, how do you explain that? Chen Dongji was immediately dumbfounded. However, the quick-witted junior sister said, Those two people have a spirit dog and a top-notch magical weapon. Presumably, they are the talented disciples that the Yu family has nurtured. Usually, they are arrogant, so they don't know the severity of their actions. It's normal for their magical weapon to be damaged. Upon hearing this, Chen Dongji thought that this was nonsense. However, when she turned around, she saw her master gently smiled without saying anything. Immediately, she realized the truth. Then she sighed at the gap between them. No wonder her junior sister's cultivation base was slightly lower than hers, but their cultivation base was basically the same. Moreover, her master liked her more. Well then, let me see how good those two Yu family's geniuses are. After saying that, he stood up. However, at this time, the complexion of this brawny man changed when he heard the summon from the division Great Elder. What? The target has appeared? Okay, I'll go. He turned around and said to the two disciples, Senior brother is looking for me, so I can't refuse. As for you two, forget it, I'll let Silverback accompany you. With that, the elder's feet exerted force, and like a cannonball, he soared into the sky and flew away. The two female cultivators were dumbfounded as they watched a gorilla that was taller and sturdier than their master slowly walk in. Each step it took made the room slightly tremble. The gorilla walked to the front of the two female cultivators. His condescending eyes carried a trace of disdain and irritation. The two female cultivators greeted him while trembling with fear. Greetings, Uncle Silverback. I've just heard from Senior Brother. You two lead the way. I'm going to take down those two juniors and that spirit dog. Chapter 179. Beast Master School was famous in 9 regions for controlling spirit beasts. Almost every cultivator in the school had one or even several spirit beasts, but the method of controlling them varied from person to person. Chen Dongji, who used the spirit dog as a tool, still belonged to a relatively low level. When it came to the level of the sturdy elder, his cultivation base had reached the king pill level, and his method of controlling spirit beasts would also change accordingly. First of all, with the improvement of the master's cultivation base, the level of the controlled spirit beast would usually also rise. After all, the master had already reached the king pill level, so the controlled spirit beast's Niden could not be condensed, otherwise, it would be useless. Once the level of the spirit beast rose, its wisdom would usually also increase, becoming more human-like and clever. At this point, if the spirit beast continued to be used as a tool, although it was not impossible according to the contract, the instinctive resistance of the spirit beast would greatly weaken the effect. Therefore, usually with the improvement of the spirit beast's level, the master's status would also correspondingly increase. For example, the gorilla in front of Chen Dongji was his master's brother. Even within the Beast Master School, he was officially a cultivator. Except for not being able to hold a high-level management position in the school, the other privileges were almost the same as a human cultivator. The various ideas advocated by Beast Master School might be extreme, and there were many voices of opposition and even ridicule in the 9 regions. However, the sect has been working hard to implement the ideas they propagated, which was why they were recognized and respected by the Union of 10,000 Immortals. The master of Qindongji and Qindongji was one of the cultivators in the school who advocated equality between humans and beasts. Of course, this equality between humans and beasts was only limited to immortal cultivators. Mortals, of course, were not counted as humans. He and his natal spirit pet called each other brother, treating each other with sincerity. Now that he was summoned by his senior brother, he had no time to get away. So, he handed over the task of capturing the 2 people of Yu family to Silverback. And since this huge gorilla could win today's status, its strength naturally could not be underestimated. In terms of the grade of monsters, it was at least a level 4 or 5 monster. Its Niden had long been formed, and it also cultivated the superior cultivation method bestowed by the Beast Master School, so its comprehensive strength could be compared to a high-level Shudon cultivator. Moreover, this spirit beast was born with great strength. Although it didn't have many magical abilities, once it got close, even a peak Shudon stage cultivator would have a big headache. Of course, if he encountered a cultivator who was good at fighting, he would naturally have many ways to toy with this gorilla that only had brute force. However, this time his opponents were only 2 little cultivators who were at most in the Foundation establishment realm. What kind of tricks could they play? Therefore, to Qindongji and Yuyang, even though their master had some matters to attend to and was unable to come out, when they saw their martial uncle Silverback coming out, their hearts felt at ease. They thought to themselves that the Yu clan's 2 reckless fools were going to be in big trouble. On the other side, Wang Lu and Lu Li restarted the Cloudwave boat and unhurriedly flew toward the eastern direction of the Moral Enlightenment City. In the Flying Boat Immortals Cave, Wang Lu set up a barbecue rack with great interest and roasted a wild boar for Lu Li. The little girl beamed with joy and even sang a song. The song was sweet and pleasant, without a lack of childlike interest, but also had an ethereal and clear taste, making people feel as if they were floating in the clouds, feeling refreshed. After the meal, Wang Lu tidied up the remaining skeleton, which he threw to the captive Sha by Danaan, while thinking about the next step of the plan. While he was thinking, he suddenly heard Lu Li ask, Senior brother, we seem to be going in the wrong direction. Isn't the Grand Cloud Mountain north of the Moral Enlightenment City? We're going to the east. Wang Lu nodded his head. Not bad, we actually found the north. But, you're still stupid. Who said we're going to the Grand Cloud Mountain? Lu Li's eyes widened. Her mind was in a mess. Senior brother, didn't you say you're going to the Grand Cloud Mountain to deliver the letter? How? That's the general direction. But at this stage, the Grand Cloud Mountain is so big, can you find Zen Master Gorua? Moreover, we've just fought with the Beast Master School, so, do you want to run to their headquarters and take the initiative to ask for permission? Right now, regarding Zen Master Gorua, the Wanxian League and the Beast Master School are unreliable, so naturally, we should look for the original owner of this place, the White Dragon Temple. I don't really understand, Lu Li frankly said, but as long as I listen to you, senior brother, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. This is de Siscon, right? Yes, you're worth teaching, Wang Lu said. His eyes couldn't help but wander around Lu Li's plump chest. This chest is indeed worth giving. No, this is simply becoming a perverted Siscon. I'd better think about how I'm going to open my mouth when I meet the good-for-nothings of the White Dragon Temple. However, before Wang Lu could reopen his train of thought, he saw Little White, who was gnawing the bone, suddenly shivered. Then, it revealed a fearful look and barked. Its eyes were eager, as if it was warning something. Wang Lu smiled. He didn't let Bien translate it, because Little White's action was enough for him to make a judgment. The long-awaited Beast Master School pursuers have arrived. Descend. Without needing to look, without even needing to confirm the other party's position, Wang Lu launched a spell to descend the Cloud Wave boat. Although he wasn't afraid of the Beast Master School pursuers, in case he accidentally damaged this deluxe version of the Cloud Wave boat, it would be too late for regrets. When the Cloud Wave boat landed, Wang Lu, Lu Li, and Quan Zhouhua walked out of the flying boat. Before long, a black shadow, like a meteorite, penetrated the ground from the sky. Bam! A giant beast with a height of more than 3 meters, clad in 100 battle armor and holding a waist-thick silver stick, fiercely examined the opponent in front of it. Its pair of spirit beast eyes quickly saw that the opponent's cultivation base was middle-level foundation establishment. It then let out a beast-like roar and questioned, "Are you the ones who injured my Beast Master School people? Hand over the spirit dog, and I'll let you go." Wang Lu burst into laughter. He simply didn't care about the deterrence of the giant beast. Lu Li even clapped her hands and laughed. "What a cute monkey." That silverback gorilla froze for a moment, and then suddenly felt a burst of anger. Thereupon, it coldly snorted and slammed the weapon in its hand on the ground. The earth quaked, and a vigorous and violent energy was transmitted from the ground, ready to explode under Wang Lu's feet. Once this power erupted, it would immediately shatter the jade mansions of those 2 middle-level foundation establishment cultivators and shake their primordial spirit. However, Wang Lu took a step forward and firmly stepped on it, just in time to intercept the shock force of the silverback's attack. That shoot-on level attack was stepped on by this foot, trembled for a moment, and then collapsed. Unexpectedly, it didn't play any role at all. While the silverback was still in shock, the opponent's counterattack came. "Xian Air, take it down."
Oh.
Lu Li very obediently called out her usual flying swords. 2 flaming red swords were held in her hands. The next moment, the girl swiftly thrusted forward, and in a flash, she appeared in front of the silverback and slashed the 2 swords together. Such a quick surprise attack surprised the silverback. Fortunately, its cultivation base was profound. At the critical moment, it raised its weapon horizontally in front of the 2 swords, trying to block the opponent's attack and then waiting for an opportunity to counterattack. However, the next moment, the blazing heat from the swords, as well as the invincible sharp sword intent, broke its defense with a loud bang, which made every hair on the silverback's body stand up in pain. The innate great strength of the spirit beast allowed it to barely withstand the impact of the opponent's slash. However, after this blow, its 2 thick arms had faintly trembled, and the lingering pain continued to stimulate its primordial spirit, making it extremely painful. As far as its eyes could see, there were 2 deep black slash marks on its beloved weapon. The magical weapon, which was refined from hundreds of kinds of metal refined from underground gold, was almost broken by the opponent's blow. And this was just to resist the opponent's attack. The silverback simply couldn't imagine how a middle-level foundation establishment cultivator could have such a powerful attack that it, a spirit beast comparable to high-level shoot-on, couldn't withstand it. However, before it could exclaim in surprise, an even more shocking thing happened before its eyes. After the first round of slash, the girl unexpectedly turned around and slashed again, and the power was several times stronger than the first strike. In an instant, the silverback judged that it absolutely could not block the second strike. The opponent's absolute power was not as good as its own, but this sword strike contained a special power that was far beyond its brute force. Although the silverback couldn't recognize the brilliant sword heart, it was, after all, a battle-hardened spirit beast of the Beast Master School. Thus, it immediately made the right choice. It thrust its blade forward, ignoring the fire sword that was about to reach its body, and assumed a posture of mutual destruction. The silverback was, after all, a powerful spirit beast that had cultivated for more than 100 years. The timing, direction, and strength of this stab were all just right. Even if it couldn't resist Lu Li's sword, it could at least take her down with it before it died. Even if Lu Li's brilliant sword heart had thousands of variations, in the face of a shoot-on stage cultivator's mutual destruction, she had no choice but to retreat. However, Lu Li didn't have the intention to retreat. With her delicate body, she faced the magical weapon of the silverback. The The two swords in her hands set off a raging flame, and then she directly chopped it down. Because she knew that the counterattack of the silverback would naturally be blocked by someone else. In the past 5 years, when she fought side by side with Wang Lu, she never needed to worry about defense. This time, of course, was no exception. Sure enough, a familiar sword shadow appeared right in front of her. Wang Lu stepped on Lu Li's flying sword, and the sword of Mount Kuan in his hand was as fast as lightning. Although it was launched later, it arrived first and hit the stick in the hand of the silverback, completely blocking the counterattack force of the silverback and then feeding it back. On the other side, Lu Li's fiery sword also chopped down, simultaneously receiving Lu Li's brilliant sword heart and its own full-strength counterattack. The silverback gorilla was seriously injured and vomited blood on the spot. Were it not for the 100 battle armor on its body that offset more than half of the damage, plus its innate tenacity, this blow would have been enough to kill it. However, even so, it had lost the power to fight again. It could only clench the stick with its huge palm, using its fierceness that was imprinted in its bones to barely support itself from falling down. Its pair of red pupils contained unyielding and anger. In the face of this heroic scene, Wang Lu did not resonate with it at all. He just looked at the opponent playfully, and then with a sword strike, he cut off its fingers that were holding the stick. The silverback screamed and fell to the ground. Its voice was incomparably miserable. However, Wang Lu just put his foot on its head and forcefully stomped it into the ground. Pretend, continue to pretend. You're obviously a beast that wants to rob me, yet you still want to pretend to be a vulnerable group? Since you don't want this face, I'll bury it for you. Chapter 180. Gorillas had never been strong and resilient creatures. Compared to those natural predators such as jackals, wolves, tigers, and leopards, even if it had a strong physique, its sensitivity and fear of pain and death often made it unable to display its full ability in actual combat. Silverback was a gorilla that had turned into a spirit. Although its cultivation was successful, it still inherited the defects of its biological instincts. Its cultivation was not weak, but its courage, cultivation, and character were not commensurate. It was very afraid of death. And the reason why its master favored it was because it was smarter than other spirit beasts, so it could stand on its own without the need for too much force. And Silverback's reaction was indeed worthy of its master's expectations. The moment it was defeated, it guessed that the two young cultivators before it were likely to be the genius disciples of some big sect. It was impossible for the cultivator clans of Celestial Water Lake to cultivate such powerful foundation establishment cultivators. These two people must have borrowed the identity of Celestial Water Lake clan to go out to gain experience, so Silverback immediately put on a mighty and unyielding martyr image for those young cultivators who lacked experience and still had unrealistic fantasies about the mortal world. This martyr image was the easiest to win sympathy and the easiest to escape. Although Silverback was a spirit beast, it had gradually become familiar with human nature. Unfortunately, the opponent it encountered this time was obviously not so easy to deceive. Regarding Silverback's method of seeking life in the face of death, Wang Lu's response was to cut off its fingers with his sword and then forcefully step on its head. These two simple actions scattered all the thoughts in Silverback's mind, replacing them with only a thick fear that could not be resolved. Then, Wang Lu's indifferent voice came into its ears. From now on, I ask you answer. If you can't answer, you die. If you play tricks, you still die. Silverback nodded again and again, not daring to hesitate in the slightest, let alone talk about any conditions. It could see that compared with its own road robbery, the opponent was obviously more ruthless, more lawless, and that ice-cold killing intent was not the least bit fake. If it was a little careless, the opponent would absolutely dare to kill it. First of all, let's start with something simple. Name, gender, age, position. Silverback, male, orangutan, 136 years old. Wang Lu coldly asked, Okay, next question. I heard that the Beast Master School is collecting rare spirit dogs near the Grand Cloud Mountain. What's the reason? Silverback was startled. He didn't expect that the other party would ask this question instead of anything else. This was the sex secret, and if it was really leaked out from its mouth, then... However, just as Silverback hesitated for a moment, Wang Lu's sword of Mount Kun was startled and unceremoniously stabbed into Silverback's thick arm. Amidst the beast's miserable howl, blood gushed out like a fountain. You can take your time to think about the wording, but the longer you think, the more blood will flow. Wang Lu's tone was indifferent as he sheathed his sword, but the tip of the sword was pointed at the back of Silverback's neck. Silverback trembled as he opened his mouth to speak, but then he heard Lu Li suddenly frowned and questioned Wang Lu. "Senior brother, I remember it's written in the sex rules that we can't oppress weak creatures." Silverback felt as if it had heard the sound of nature. Even though the heavy injuries on its body were mostly caused by this girl, it still couldn't help but want to praise her 32 times. Well said. How could a righteous disciple abuse the weak? Even if you want to kill it, you can't abuse it. However, in the face of Lu Li's serious questioning, Wang Lu didn't explain too much. Although this result was basically the Beast Master School's own fault, intercepting them in broad daylight, brazenly trying to snatch the spirit dog, and even made the first move. Moreover, when making the first move, they didn't hesitate to injure or even kill people. For this kind of bandit behavior, using violence to curb violence was already considered very cheap. However, with Lu Li's cognitive ability, why did it need to be so complicated? Wang Lu just smiled. "I'm not abusing it, but cooking." "Cooking?" Lu Li's beautiful eyes widened. Once again, she felt that her brain capacity was a bit insufficient. Wang Lu said with a smile, "Orangutan sashimi, have you ever eaten it?" Lu Li awkwardly frowned. "Later on, we'll take the monkey's brain. Right now, these are the necessary steps of cooking, absolutely not abusing it. So you can rest assured and wait to eat it." Lu Li's willowy eyebrows stretched out, and then she said with a grin, "I know senior brother is the best. You would never violate the sex rules." Silverback was simply dumbfounded, thinking, "No, this is absolutely not right. How can this kind of nonsense explanation pass the test? Which sex rules are so undignified?" Unfortunately, before he could think too much, the sword of Mount Kun had already pierced his body. The intense pain robbed Silverback's ability to think. As a spirit beast that wasn't good at enduring pain, Silverback really couldn't bear it. Therefore, he finally divulged the sex secret. "Because we are refining a spiritual treasure-level beast collar, we need to use the spirit of 10,000 dogs. Relying solely on the spirit dogs of the division is far from enough. Therefore, we need to collect all the spirit dogs in the vicinity of the Grand Cloud Mountain. Although the strength of the spirit dog around you is not strong, it's a very special breed, which is very valuable for refining spiritual treasure. Therefore, no matter what, we have to get it." Wang Lu nodded and slightly withdrew the sword of Mount Kun. Refining the beast collar requires the spirit of 10,000 dogs. Wang Lu pursed his lips, recalling what he had learned in the Tongue Cloud Hall in the past 2 years. In his study plan, the path of tool refining would only be strengthened after he reached the Shidon stage, so he didn't study it too deeply. However, according to his basic common sense, what Silverback said should be true. The most important magic weapon of the Beast Master School to tame spirit beasts was the beast collar. Once the spirit beast was hooked, its magical power and primordial spirit would be involuntarily controlled and could only be at the mercy of others. This was a magic weapon used by the Beast Master School to deal with spirit beasts that were difficult to tame. However, the beast collar was certainly not omnipotent. The more magical and powerful the spirit beast was, the more difficult it was to tame it. For example, it was very difficult to use a magical tool-level beast collar on Silverback. However, this time, the Beast Master School wanted to refine a spiritual treasure. In the end, what kind of spirit beast was worth using a spiritual treasure to trap? What's more, it was indicated that the beast collar had to be refined with the spirituality of a spirit dog. This kind of beast collar targeted at a special breed was far more effective than versatile. In conclusion, could it be that the Beast Master School wanted to catch the howling celestial dog? When Wang Lu threw this question to Silverback, the gorilla cursed in his heart. He had deliberately avoided this question and only talked about the beast collar. But he didn't expect the other to immediately ask. However, if he continued, it would seriously harm the school's interests. Silverback hesitated for a long time, not daring to open his mouth. Who knew that Silverback's hesitation made Wang Lu's eyes light up? Oh, you're hesitating and don't dare to speak? It seems this is the core problem. Combining the existing conditions, I guess you found a rare spirit dog on the Grand Cloud Mountain. Perhaps its strength is not strong and its grade is not high, but it's especially good at hiding and escaping. Your division has many spiritual masters, but they can't do anything about it. Therefore, you came up with the idea of refining the beast collar. You want to use the spiritual treasure-level beast collar to suppress the dog-type spirit beasts within a radius of 100 miles, so as to limit its mobility. Under the horrified eyes of Silverback, Wang Lu continued to speculate. For your beast master school to muster such a large force, not even hesitating to become a bandit, it's probably because you want to end this quickly and can't afford to delay. Why do you want to end the battle quickly? Are you worried that someone will obstruct you? Why are you worried that someone will obstruct you? Because that spirit dog is also of great value to other schools, so much so that they don't hesitate to oppose your beast master school? So, if I'm not mistaken, it should be a super high-level young spirit beast? Or maybe it's an immortal beast. As the silverback gorilla's heart gradually turned cold, Wang Lu chuckled. Although my guess may not be accurate, I think whether it's the White Dragon Temple, Gentle Cloud Mountain, or even the dozens of immortal cultivation sects within the Grand Cloud Empire, they would all be very interested in my guess. A young immortal beast. Even the 5 uniques of the Wuxia League won't be indifferent. So, why don't you take a guess? If I were to spread this news, what kind of miracle would happen? The next moment, a heavy voice burst from the sky. If you really want to do this, I guarantee you won't live past today. Hearing this voice, the silverback gorilla's face stiffened, and then it was uncontrollable ecstasy. At the same time, hiding in the distance, Qin Dongji and Li Yingying, who had witnessed the whole process with trepidation, could not help but cheer. Masters. It was the Beast Master School's King Pill Elder, who sensed that Silverback was in danger through the Spirit Beast contract. Let go of Silverback and surrender, and I'll spare your life. When he spoke, the Elder was still dozens of miles away, but his voice had already passed over first, and it was wrapped in the pure magical power of Taoist Master King Pill. As the sound waves rolled, the vibrating force directly penetrated into the opponent's Jade Mansion, trying to shake the primordial spirit. The fire-thunder incantation of Elder from a high-rank sect, King Pill, could hurt people even dozens of miles away. Regarding Taoist Master King Pill's preemptive strike, Wang Lu just casually brandished the sword of Mount Kun. The invisible non-phase sword Qi drew out his sword defense, encircling Lu Li and the model dog. That sound wave disintegrated at the edge of the sword defense. Wang Lu propped up his defense, carefully savoring the countershock force from the sword tip. He had already judged that the opponent was a genuine Taoist Master King Pill. Although it was only a low-rank King Pill, and the quality of King Pill was not too good for the 2 Foundation establishment stage like them, it was still a terrifying opponent. At this time, Silverback, who was stepped on the ground, lowered its head, hiding the ominous glint in its eyes. Wang Lu was indeed formidable to be able to block the fire-thunder incantation. However, as soon as its master came closer, with the Beast Master School's secret method, it could instantly break free. Man and beast fusion would increase its master's strength, which would then be able to easily take down these 2 Foundation establishment stage insects. As for Wang Lu, he was still not in a hurry. After offsetting the fire-thunder incantation, he pointed the sword of Mount Kun toward the direction of the sound. Is that the Joker invited by the monkeys? At the same time, his left hand made a gesture toward Lu Li. The girl's face showed a trace of surprise, but her hand's movement was as fast as lightning. The fiery sword flew out of her hand and went straight down from the top of Silverback's head, immediately taking its life. However, That gorilla's strange smile was still hanging on its face.
How dare you?
You're courting death. Immediately followed by Elder King Pill's thunderous fury, which soared to the sky and dyed the entire sky with the color of the setting sun. Wang Lu inwardly sneered, "Do you think I'm a fool? Who doesn't know that the cultivators of Beast Master School have the strongest fighting power when they join hands with the beast? If I don't take advantage of a time when you're separated to deal with one side first, then when you're together, we'll fall into a bitter fight. Therefore, I'll break your arm first, and then you can play with your bird alone, you fool." Chapter 181. When the news of Silverback's death came from the primordial spirit contract, the corresponding punishment was also fed back to its master. In an instant, Elder Chi Ho felt as if he was in a sea of fire. His primordial spirit violently trembled, as if it was about to melt on the spot. This was the punishment of the contract. When he enjoyed the convenience of the spirit pet as the master, he also had to bear the responsibility of guarding the spirit pet. A moment of carelessness caused him to lose his right-hand man. The resentment of Silverback's death was fed back through the contract, making him feel so much pain that he wished he was dead. As if it was only a trivial moment, but also as if it had been a long time, Chi Ho's whole body trembled as he passed through the punishment of the contract. In addition to the pain, there was also ferociousness on his face. Those two bastards must die. Moreover, they must die in the most painful and cruel way. After death, their bones would be ground into ashes, their primordial spirit would be extracted and put into the furnace to suffer eternal suffering. They dared to kill Silverback. No matter how big their background was, they couldn't stop his revenge. Elder Chi Ho clenched his teeth. His anger had long been boiling. However, on the other hand, under the flame refinement, his fire element heart was exceptionally calm so that he didn't lose his mind. Instead, he was more clear-headed in analyzing the situation. This time, it was indeed their side that made a mistake. At first, they only thought that they were elite disciples trained by the Yu family of Celestial Water Lake. Therefore, they didn't care about Silverback, who was not particularly good at fighting, who knew that this mistaken judgment would actually send Silverback's life. It was just that, seeing Wang Lu's sword defense to resist the fire thunder incantation, as well as Lu Li's unstoppable flying sword, she knew that these two people were definitely not people that could be cultivated by the Yu family of Celestial Water Lake. It was very likely that they were the successor disciples of the first-rank sections, the so-called Yu family of Celestial Water Lake. Either this family had some dog-shit luck, and their disciples were taken in by the big sects, or this signboard was simply a cover, and these two people were just used to hide their identity. In a place like Cloud Region, the title of genius disciple of a big sect brought convenience, but it was also accompanied by considerable risk. Because everyone knew that genius disciples were priceless. Not only because of the sect treasures they carried on their bodies, but also because of these genius disciples' top-grade spirit roots, it was enough to turn them into walking human-shaped nourishing pills. Many evil cultivators loved to pluck these genius disciples to nourish themselves. Since he recognized that the opponent's background was not ordinary, Chi Ho put away the contempt in his heart. At the same time, he also knew that this battle could not be rushed. A disciple of such a large sect would definitely have a life-saving item given to him by the sect. It would either be something like the escape talisman that could allow him to escape quickly, or something like the Golden Bell shield that could set up an absolute defense, or he would simply have an essence soul avatar of the sect's elders following him. However, no matter which one it was a trump card that he would not use unless it was absolutely necessary. Once he used it, he might be able to successfully overcome the current crisis, but his trip down the mountain could be considered to have come to an end. What Chi-Ho wanted to do was to make the opponent have no time to bring out these cards. As for the method, it was best to use the tactic of boiling a frog in warm water. Drag the opponent into a protracted battle and deliberately reveal flaws to make them think that victory was in their grasp. Then, thinking of this, Chi-Ho slightly converged his own magical power. Although his strength had declined greatly after losing Silverback, the King Pill realm was still there. How hard could it be to deal with two foundation establishment cultivators? After all, he didn't personally witness the defeat of Silverback. Thus, he only calculated that if he didn't restrain himself a bit, perhaps in 3 to 5 moves, he would be able to force the opponent into a desperate situation. Then 2 dazzling fiery red sword lights completely interrupted his thinking. Chi-Ho was extremely surprised to see Lu Li rapidly approaching him. It was hard to believe that a mere foundation establishment girl actually dared to so arrogantly take the initiative to attack, and even more difficult to believe that a mere foundation establishment girl could actually wield such a sharp sword intent. The sword tip has yet to arrive, but that unstoppable brilliant sword intent has already directly penetrated Chi-Ho's magical power protection and touched his primordial spirit. Even though Chi-Ho's cultivation base was far superior to the opponent's and his primordial spirit strength, he still felt an unbearable pain in an instant. Chi-Ho immediately resorted to a beast skull that was covered with blood-colored war tattoos. The eyes of the skull bloomed with brilliant light, which shone on Chi-Ho's naked upper body. A ferocious aura came from this ancient beast skull and poured into Chi-Ho's body along the war tattoos. Immediately, his bones elongated, his muscles swelled, and he turned into a half-man, half-beast monster that roared and pounced. Oh, is this the beast transformation of Beast Master School? Cien Air, go all out. Seeing this change, Wang Lu sent out a command with his eyes. Without hesitation, Lu Li released the 10 flying swords that were hidden in her sleeves and gathered them around the 2 swords. Her attack power rose to another level. Her pair of eyes that were filled with innocence also became as indifferent as ice, and her brilliant sword heart began to operate at full force. As for Wang Lu himself, one of his hands wrapped around Lu Li's slender waist, while the other hand held his sword. The thick and heavy sword body was wrapped in sword momentum, like an indestructible shield. A moment later, a collision occurred. Lu Li's full strength thrust the 2 swords against Chi-Ho's chest. His bronze skin, soaked in sweat, blossomed with a metallic brilliance. With a sharp piercing sound, the 2 fiery swords drew a string of sparks on his chest, leaving behind 2 scorch marks. However, they couldn't really break the skin and hurt the muscle. The defensive power of Taoist Master King Pill was beyond doubt. Lu Li's ever-successful brilliant sword heart couldn't even penetrate the outermost defense of his body, and the sword intent that was aimed at his primordial spirit was also neutralized by his boiling fighting intent. At the same time, Lu Li felt that the world turned dark, and a terrifying shadow fell from the sky. It was the giant beast skull that was enlarged thousands of times. 2 rows of sharp teeth were on her head, which then fiercely bit down. However, Lu Li didn't even look at the approaching death. With a flick of her wrist, she let go of the fiery sword and then grabbed the 7th metal sword from the side. She then turned around and stabbed again. Her movement was as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. However, the power of the 2 swords was comparable to the first burst of thunder, inconceivably fast. With 2 loud noises, Lu Li's 7th metal sword fiercely hit the opponent, and the 2 rows of sharp teeth of the giant beast's skull also fiercely closed. Finally, a drop of blood oozed out from Chi-Ho's chest. However, the giant beast's skull that he used to counterattack was firmly opened by 2 powerful arms. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't close it. Wang Lu tried his best to open up a space for Lu Li. Although it wasn't big, it was enough for the girl to turn her waist, borrow the momentum, and then replace the 2 lightning-flashing flying swords. When she attacked again, her power had gone up another notch. Chi-Ho's countenance finally changed. Lu Li's continuous sword strikes had no interval for her to catch her breath. Each sword strike was more powerful than the previous one, and it seemed to be endless. Although his stage was higher than her by a stage and a half, if he continued like this, perhaps he would only be able to receive 2 sword strikes at most before his foundation would be injured. Originally, he intended to use the method of boiling the frog in warm water to numb the opponent bit by bit, and then wait for the opportunity to strike, so that the opponent would have no room for resistance. However, who would have thought that after 2 or 3 moves, there was actually a faint sign of defeat? On the other side, perhaps the ancient beast's skull had lost its power from tens of thousands of years ago, but its bite force was enough to cut gold and break jade. How could a small foundation establishment stage cultivator withstand it with her body alone? However, as long as Wang Lu's 2 hands supported him, the 7 feet space was unbreakable. After the third collision, blood spilled from the corner of Wang Lu's mouth. However, Lu Li's wind and thunder sword also made Chiho's face show a trace of unnatural redness. Senior brother, the 8th level of King Pill -5. I only need 3 more sword strikes to defeat the opponent. When she turned around for the third time, Lu Li's clear and cold eyes revealed her instinctive judgment. Wang Lu nodded, took a deep breath, and suppressed the unceasingly shaking jade mansion. Sure enough, Chiho wasn't in his best condition. Instructing Lu Li to kill Silverback with 1 sword strike was indeed the right decision. Not only did it cut off Chiho's opportunity to merge with his beast, it also destroyed his beast taming contract, causing his strength to be greatly reduced by the backlash. Although he had the King Pill stage, he couldn't fully display his ability. Otherwise, even if his real ability was to merge with his beast, his fighting power would be greatly reduced. However, since he came from a third-rank sect, his comprehensive strength shouldn't have fallen to the level of -5. Good kid, you've pushed me too far. How could Chiho, the dignified Taoist master of the King Pill stage, sit still and wait for death? The ominous glint in his eyes was even more flourishing as he roared, "White teeth, come out." Wang Lu also roared, "Quanzhou Huas." Knowing that Chiho's card wasn't just the beast transformation, Wang Lu didn't let the stupid dog make its move. At this time, hearing Chiho's roar, he immediately pulled out his own card. The stupid dog roared, its nose slightly trembled, and then it rushed to a certain place. Even though his trump card was being countered, Chiho only had a cruel sneer on his face. The next moment, his body swelled up by 3 times, and a blood-red battle pattern appeared on his cheeks. His aura doubled in strength. It was as if there was a steady stream of power pouring into his body. Damn, immortal modes? As the top student of Spirit Sword Sect, Wang Lu could see through Chiho's means at a glance. This King Pill Elder's quality was really not something that the inferior King Pill Elder could compare to. In addition to Silverback, he also had other spirit pets. It was just that he didn't bring them with him. During the fight, that spirit pet would hide in the distance. Once it was called, it would immediately use the secret technique of Beast Master School to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy and transform it into pure magical power, which would then be transferred to Chiho, allowing his power to surge. In Wang Lu's view, wasn't this method of inhaling and exhaling spiritual energy exactly the immortal mode? Lu Li didn't need to test the strength of the opponent in immortal mode. Wang Lu could already guess it. He immediately reached out and patted Lu Li's shoulder, and then roared, "Withdraw." When the girl turned around for the 4th time, upon hearing this, she suddenly paused and her movement slowed down. Seeing this, Chiho wildly laughed. "Want to run? Too late." Nobody knew when, but the skull of the ancient ferocious beast had been enlarged thousands of times, forming a huge cage that covered the sky, trapping the 3 of them inside. With this skull as a restraint, Chiho wasn't afraid that the opponent could escape. Even if Lu Li used her full strength to slash it, without 3 to 5 strikes, she wouldn't be able to break the skull. Not to mention, how could Chiho let the opponent break the skull? However, the next moment, in Chiho's astonished eyes, Lu Li suddenly accelerated after turning around for the 4th time. The 2 blazing swords in her hands thrust straight at him, carrying an unprecedentedly strong sword intent that was unstoppable. Damn it, I've been tricked. Just as he thought of this, the fiery sword has already heavily stabbed Chiho's throat. The magical power of the fire element on the sword and the incomparably sharp sword intent poured out from the tip of the sword. The power of this sword strike had firmly reached the level of King Pill. However, after this sword strike, Chiho was forced to retreat several steps. His complexion changed, and his throat was scorched black. However, very soon, new granulations squirmed out from the wound, showing that Chi-Ho didn't suffer too serious of an injury. In immortal mode, Chi-Ho's defensive ability was far from what it used to be. No matter how strong Lu Li's brilliant sword heart was, she couldn't get rid of the restriction of high-level foundation establishment. She couldn't even condense her Shudon. Thus, in the face of the Taoist master of King Pill, she was somewhat powerless. Chi-Ho coughed out several mouthfuls of blood. Looking inside, his jade mansion has been damaged in several corners. Inwardly, he was shocked, thinking, I wonder how many high-level foundation establishment cultivators with such powerful attack power can be found in the 9 regions? The other party most likely concealed their cultivation base, otherwise, it would be impossible for them to be this sharp. However, this was the end of it. If the opponent wanted to win, they must first unlock their own immortal mode, causing their strengthened attack and defense to fall again. And if they wanted to unlock their immortal mode, they must defeat their own spirit pet, White Teeth. The spirit dog sent by Wang Lu might have an excellent bloodline, but its current strength was not strong, far from being the opponent of White Teeth. At this time, White Teeth might have already captured Wang Lu's model dog. As long as he defeated the opponent in front of him, he would be able to declare his victory in this fight. And the immortal mode Taoist master of King Pill, facing 2 middle-level and high-level foundation establishment cultivators, had an overwhelming advantage. At this time, looking at Wang Lu and Lu Li, Chi-Ho seemed to be sizing up his spoils of war, especially Lu Li, which made people involuntarily look at her. However, at this time, a mournful dog bark suddenly came from afar. The sound was full of fear and panic. Chi-Ho's complexion changed as he recognized that it was the voice of White Teeth. What the hell? What is the origin of that mottled dog that even White Teeth couldn't take it down? It must be known that White Teeth was stronger than Silverback. If not because he didn't like dogs, his spirit pet should have been White Teeth. The next moment, a burst of complacent laughter came from the air. Chi-Ho's complexion turned even uglier because the answer has been revealed. Ha ha, what a fat and lean big black dog. Tonight, I'm going to eat to my heart's content. Zen Master Guru, you son of a bitch. Just as his anger rose, Chi-Ho spurted out a mouthful of blood. White Teeth was already dead. Chapter 182. Go All Out. Almost at the same time when Chi-Ho vomited blood, Wang Lu made his judgment. Lu Li took a deep breath. Ignoring the fact that her magical power had been depleted due to her continuous outburst just now, she just strictly followed Wang Lu's instruction. She raised her last bit of strength, turned around, and swung her sword. Then, the girl saw Chi-Ho's eyes that were full of humiliation and unwillingness. The dignified Taoist master of the King Pill was actually forced to the point of no return. Chi-Ho clenched his teeth and activated a talisman on his body. Escape talisman. Before the fight, Chi-Ho was still calculating how to intercept the opponent if she used something similar to the escape talisman. However, unexpectedly, after a fierce fight, the one who used the escape talisman turned out to be himself. The dignified King Pill had to flee in defeat in front of 2 foundation establishment cultivators. This humiliation would probably be difficult to wash off in his lifetime. However, no matter how humiliating it was, living was better than dying. After losing 2 spirit pets in succession, Chi-Ho's strength had fallen to the lowest point. Since he mastered the King Pill, he had never been this weak. The omnipotent King Pill in the middle of his jade mansion was dim, and vaguely, there was even a tendency to disintegrate. That was a sign that his cultivation base was greatly damaged, a sign that he would fall back to shoot on stage. In this case, there was no need to consider what kind of recuperation he would have to go through to recover. Lu Li's final blow alone was something that he absolutely couldn't withstand. Therefore, he decisively activated the escape talisman. However, the next moment, in Chi-Ho's shocked and angry eyes, he saw Lu Li's 2 swords turned into a group of shadows, which seemed real and illusory at the same time. However, it actually chopped an inch in front of Chi-Ho, cutting off an invisible connection. That was the connection line between Chi-Ho and the ancient vicious beast skull. Lu Li's sword could cut through all things. Unexpectedly, while the opposite party was unprepared, her sword actually cut off the connection between Chi-Ho and the skull. The interruption of this connection was originally not a problem. As the owner, Chi-Ho only needed a breath's time to re-establish the connection. However, now, Chi-Ho didn't even have a breath's time to activate the escape talisman. His huge figure, in a split second, turned into a ray of light, flew to the sky, and in the blink of an eye, disappeared on the horizon. As soon as Chi-Ho left, the huge skull lost its source of magical power. It suddenly shrank back to its original position and fell to the ground with a rumbling sound. Wang Lu conveniently picked up the skull. This was the first valuable loot since he went down the mountain for experiential learning. Although the grade was not high, just a high-rank magical treasure, its commemorative value was different. This was the loot from the fierce fight between Wang Lu and Lu Li, who were still in Foundation establishment stage, against Daoist Master King Pill. However, Wang Lu didn't have the time to carefully play with it. He pulled Lu Li and went in the direction of the stupid dog. Although he didn't witness the incident just now, he could guess that there must be a kind-hearted passerby who pulled out a sword to help and directly beheaded White Teeth. Only then did Chi-Ho leave with hatred in his heart. Now, the first thing he needed to do was to meet that kind-hearted passerby. Previously, that person shouted that he wanted to stew the big black dog for dinner. Obviously, he had a soft spot for dog meat. And although Hua Hua, that stupid dog, was stupid and small in size, its meat quality. Passing through several clumps of woods, Wang Lu saw a kind-hearted passerby next to a stream. Unexpectedly, the one who caught his eye was a young woman who looked about 25 or 26 years old. She was tall and had picturesque facial features. She wore a luxurious purple dress, which gave her a somewhat noble and otherworldly temperament. However, her smile seemed a lot more approachable. Her body's magical power fluctuation was completely restrained, making it impossible to see the depth of her cultivation base. Unexpectedly, the chivalrous person who saw injustice was actually a woman. Wang Lu was slightly startled, especially when he saw that the woman was single-handedly carrying a rather large black dog, sizing it up and down with a smile on her face. This sense of incongruity became even heavier. However, thinking of the other parties helped just now, Wang Lu still followed the etiquette rules learned in the Tingyan Hall and solemnly saluted. "I am Yu Lu of the Celestial Water Lake. This is my junior sister, Yu Xian. Thank you for your help just now." The woman smiled and waved her hand. "Don't mention it. I mainly wanted to solve the problem of dinner. Moreover, even without my help, your spirit pet wouldn't have lost." As she spoke, she had already taken out a knife and cut open the belly of the black spirit dog, White Teeth. Then, she began to cook it on the spot with the stream water. Her movements were skillful and swift. "Hee, the quality of this black dog is really not bad. It is fate that we met. If you don't mind, why don't you taste my cooking later?" I might not dare to say anything else, but in terms of cooking dog meat, there are not many people in the entire Yunzhou who can compare to me. This woman was frank, generous, and hospitable. Wang Lu looked at her for a long time, but he didn't find any trace of falsehood on her face. He couldn't help but smile. "Then I will be indebted to your hospitality." "Good. You are straightforward enough." I found that there are a lot of people in this Yuntai mountain who, as soon as they hear that they can eat dog meat, can't wait to cut people into pieces. Really, it's not like they are eating the meat of their parents. It's really interesting. Wang Lu said, "It's just a joke. Why do you care?" As he spoke, he looked around, looking for his modeled dog. He thought to himself, "This stupid dog has stupid luck. It shouldn't have been smothered by the swordswoman, right? Looking for your dog. It is hiding over there and doesn't dare to see me. Just now it was about to swallow this rare big black dog. In order to avoid wasting God's gift, I scared it. Oh, don't worry, no matter how greedy I am, it's impossible for me to cook and eat the descendant of Fenrir. Wang Lu was shocked. This woman knows Fenrir? The woman raised her head and smiled. I have eaten a lot of dog meat, so I have done some research on similar animals. However, to be able to raise Fenrir as a pet, you and the little sister over there shouldn't be from Tianshui Lake, right? After his lie was exposed, Wang Lu shrugged his shoulders. In Jianghu, it's important to be low-key. Very well, let me introduce myself again. I am Wang Lu, and this is Lu Li from Spirit Sword Mountain in Blue River region. Oh, I am Xiaoqi. You can just call me Qinyang. Halfway through her words, the woman stood up in surprise. You are disciples of Lingjian School? Then it's really fate. Do you know a guy named Wang Wu? We, old friends, haven't seen each other for many years. This time it was Wang Lu's turn to be surprised. It was not unusual for a Lingjian School cultivator to have friends outside, but that bitch Wang Wu actually had friends. This was too inconceivable. Besides making enemies, what else could she do? Thinking of this, Wang Lu's thoughts turned again. Could it be? Although this speculation was absurd according to common sense, thinking that she was his master's friend, Wang Lu felt a bit relieved. Excuse me, do you know Zen Master Go Ruo? Xiaoqi blinked. Zen Master Go Ruo? That's me. Wang Lu sighed. Looking at the fresh dog meat in the woman's hand that had already been cut into pieces, he guessed that the so-called Zen Master Go Ruo was probably Zen Master Guru. However, why did such a beautiful woman have the title of Zen Master? Qinyang, are you a Zen cultivator? Xiaoqi tilted her head and thought for a moment. I don't think so. You have a profound Zen method and you're familiar with Zen scriptures? Xiaoqi waved her hand. Who's interested in that stuff? Wang Lu sighed. She was indeed a person who had drunk wine and meat for a long time. Then why do you call yourself Zen Master? Xiaoqi blinked. Because I'm really gluttonous. Pfft. It turned out to be a gluttonous master. You're simply a scammer, okay? Xiaoqi indifferently said, but to say it, I do have some relationship with Zen, so some people like to call me Zen Master Guru. For the time being, I'll admit it. With that, she looked at Wang Lu. Are you Wang Wu's disciples? Wang Lu thought that since the other party was his master's friend, it was not surprising for her to see his origin. The magical power fluctuation of non-phase method was very special. Although the version that Wang Lu and Wang Wu practiced was different, it was still the same. Exactly. Wang Lu replied. That's good. Last time when we parted, she borrowed 200,000 spirit stones from me. You're her disciple. Shouldn't you pay for your master's debt? Wang Lu did not hesitate. No way. Xiaoqi was silent for a moment. Don't you want to show your filial piety to your master? Looking at your cultivation base, Wang Wu should have spent a lot of effort on you in the past few years, so you ought to repay her. Or is it that you have inherited the glorious but poor tradition of non-phase peak that you are powerless? Wang Lu earnestly replied, Money, I do have it. Although I don't dare to say that I'm rich, there's no pressure to pay for her debt. However, it's for her sake that this debt can't be paid. Xiaoqi was so angry that he wanted to laugh. You non-phase peak master and disciple are really carved from the same mold. Why don't you tell me why you can't pay it back? Because once this starts, there will be no end to it. I believe that master's debt should be a habit. Creditors are everywhere in the world. If they heard that I'm willing to pay for her debt, I'm afraid they will immediately flock to me. Xiaoqi laughed. Are you afraid that you can't pay it back? I'm afraid that after I pay it back, Master would think that a pie fell from the sky and turn around to borrow money. Right now, she has a bad debt, and her credit value has long fallen below the bottom line. I believe no one would be willing to lend her money. However, if the debt is paid off and her credit rating returns to normal, I think it's not difficult to imagine what she would do. That's a bottomless pit. Xiaoqi was suddenly silent. Very well, I admit that what you said is reasonable. Later on, when I have time, I will find her face to face to collect the debt. In order to further distract her, Wang Lu changed the topic. This is the letter that Master asked me to bring to you. Seven took the letter and casually opened it. Her eyes lit up and she finished reading it. A smile appeared on her delicate face. Wang Lu didn't need to guess to know that his master certainly didn't write anything good in the letter. Your master said that the model dog you brought is a strange beast from the western continent, Fenrir. If I can deceive that Fenrir and sell it, we can split the profit 50-50. It's not unusual to sell this kind of quasi-immortal beast for millions of spirit stones. Introducing this great opportunity to me is her paying off her debt. Then, Shao-Chi somewhat dispiritedly threw away the letter. If I knew this, I wouldn't have read the letter in front of you. Wang Lu was silent for a moment and then said, when you go to Spirit Sword Mountain to collect the debt, if you need to drug or sneak attack, I can fully support you. After you succeed, contact the brothel or human traffickers. I can also do it for you. Ha ha ha. You're indeed a pair of master and disciple. Shao-Chi looked at Wang Lu with approval. Speaking of which, I have something to ask of you. Chapter 183. There's something I want to ask of you. Over at the Grand Cloud Mountain, the Beast Master School bastards have built a branch. It looks very unsightly. Help me think of a way to eradicate it. While speaking, Shao-Chi's expression became incomparably indifferent. Although he had already anticipated that this gluttonous master dog meat would inevitably be at odds with the Beast Master School who advocated equality between humans and beasts, Wang Lu did not expect the contradiction between the two to be this sharp. Senior Shao-Chi looked delicate and handsome, with a kind and amiable temperament, but the moment he opened his mouth, he wanted to exterminate the entire branch. Sure enough, a woman's heart is the most poisonous. Hey, I only want to exterminate the branch. I didn't say I want to exterminate their entire clan. Don't act too fiercely. Wang Lu shrugged his shoulders. Do you mind telling me how Senior became enemies with them? Shao-Chi hesitated for a moment, then softly said, in fact, it's not a big deal. The Beast Master School collected several thousand spirit dogs on the Grand Cloud Mountain to refine beast collars. Then when I passed by, I ate more than half of those spirit dogs, so we became enemies. Several of their elders unceasingly chased me, and after several fights, the enmity grew bigger and bigger. Wang Lu could not help but sigh. You really *king deserve it. Liking to eat dog meat was one thing, this was a personal hobby, a personal freedom. And scrupulously eating dog meat in the Beast Master School's territory was already a public slap in the face, quite impolite. But considering that eating meat was the norm around the Grand Cloud Mountain, and it was the Beast Master School who forcefully reversed the public opinion, it was fine. But this guy actually directly ate the spirit dogs that other people had painstakingly collected. What was the difference between this and directly coming to someone's house to defile their wife? The Beast Master School was not a good person. How could they tolerate it? It would be strange if they did not become enemies. At this time, looking at this hearty and good-natured senior, Wang Lu could not help but sigh with emotion. To be able to become good friends with his master, there was no way his personality was not twisted. As for helping to flatten the branch, to be honest, on this trip to the Grand Cloud Mountain, Wang Lu was indeed planning to earn some reputation points from the Beast Master School, but he didn't want to earn his sin points as well. After all, the Beast Master School was still a righteous sect. In the past, during the Great War of Immortals and Devils, they had made great contributions. Although many of the school's ideas were extreme and undesirable, and the quality of the disciples was also mixed. For example, Elder Chi-Ho, who tried to extort the Quanzhou Hua, strictly speaking, had already committed an evil act. But you can hate them and secretly set some obstacles, but in the end, you can't brazenly go to their front door. Seeing the frown on Wang Lu's face, Shao-Chi only smiled. How about this? You come with me and see the situation of the Beast Taming School's division. If you don't want to help, I won't force you. When Wang Lu heard this, he frowned even tighter. Qingyang meant that there was something hidden behind it? Fine, I'll let her experience it then. With Shao-Chi leading the way, the group of people flew in the direction of the Grand Cloud Mountain. As a good friend of Wang Wu, Shao-Chi dared to challenge an expert of the Beast Taming School's division by himself, so her magical power was naturally not bad. According to Wang Lu's estimation, she was at least at the level of King Pill. She alone carried 2 people and a dog, and her speed was not much slower than Wang Lu's Cloudwave boat. When they were close to the Grand Cloud Mountain, Xiaoqi took the initiative to descend and used a technique to cover up their bodies, smell, and other traces. Then, using his primordial spirit, he said, "Follow me. Don't make any noise." Xiaoqi's concealment technique was very powerful. The group of 3 people quickly walked through the mountain forest, and very soon, they entered the boundary of the Beast Taming School's division, but they didn't trigger the Beast Taming School's early warning formation. The Grand Cloud Mountain had been operated by the Beast Taming School for about a year. Even though it couldn't be said to be filled with killing intent at every step, there were still a lot of mechanisms and formations. But Xiaoqi was very familiar with the road, so they walked as if they were walking on flat ground. Occasionally, they would come across a patrolling Beast Taming School disciple, but their group would just stroll past them, and unexpectedly, the other party didn't notice anything unusual. It was reasonable to say that the Beast Taming School had many spirit beasts, and the 5 senses of spirit beasts were far stronger than that of ordinary cultivators. So, the interior of the division should be the most heavily guarded. But until Wang Lu and the others arrived at a call in the hinterland of the Grand Cloud Mountain, they were not discovered by anyone. And in the call, Wang Lu saw an astonishing scene. No less than several thousand spirit dogs were gathered in the call, and the small space seemed to be very crowded. These spirit dogs all had special collars tied around their necks. The Beast Taming School's collars were supposed to be magical tools to nourish the body and primordial spirit, but if one looked carefully, one could clearly see a subtle flow of life from the spirit dogs' bodies to the collars, and then it was gathered and transported by the formation in the call to a distant place. These collars were simply plundering the life energy. At this time, in the call, most of the spirit dogs seemed to be dispirited and listless. Similarly, the nature of the heaven and earth spiritual energy in this place was also unpleasant. With Wang Lu's void spiritual root, he could clearly see a withered yellow color, as if the fire of life was about to be extinguished in despair. Among these several thousand spirit dogs, there was no lack of sick and injured ones, but the Beast Taming School did not give them any treatment, leaving them to fend for themselves. And even if it was a spirit dog with a strong physique, living in this kind of lifeless call, with its life force constantly being sucked away, was still a dead end, not to mention those sick and injured ones. Xiaoqi turned his head and asked, "How do you feel?" "I feel like I can understand your way of doing things." Xiaoqi said, "In order to catch young immortal beasts, the Beast Taming School gathered tens of thousands of spirit dogs to refine the spirit treasure beast taming collar. This is not a problem, but the refining process may cause certain harm to the spirit dogs, and this is also not a problem. However, this kind of bone-crushing, bone-sucking exploitation is really rare. This division elder's method of refining the beast taming collar is unconventional, refining the negative emotions of tens of thousands of spirit dogs. Therefore, he forced these tens of thousands of spirit dogs into a bad situation, constantly producing pain, despair, and other emotions, and then extracted them with the collar and special array, turning them into spiritual treasure materials. Fortunately, it's the dogs that provide the materials, not people. Otherwise, based on this scene alone, the Wuxia League would not turn a blind eye, and the law enforcement team would have long come to kill them." Wang Lu slowly nodded, lost in thought. Luli couldn't stand it anymore. Her clear eyes sparkled with tears. Why are they so cruel? Don't the Beast Taming School love their spirit beasts?" Xiaoqi smiled. "The Beast Taming School people love their spirit beasts? That's a big joke. Carefully think about the name of their school. It's Beast Taming School, not Beast Loving School. If they really love their spirit beasts, how could they put them above their spirit beasts? How could they put a collar on their spirit beasts?" Luli still found it difficult to understand. "They preach in the moral enlightenment city too," Xiaoqi sneered and interrupted her. "Vegetarianism? What's even more ridiculous is that there are many kinds of spirit beasts, and quite a few of them are natural carnivores, unable to digest vegetarian food. When the beast taming school raised these spirit beasts, how do they feed them? Isn't it by slaughtering them to provide fresh meat? They just prohibit mortals from eating meat. In their eyes, mortals are even worse than animals. Not to mention most of the division elders are cats, and they're hostile to spirit dogs. In short, remember, among the tens of thousands of cultivators in the beast taming school, there's no lack of great cultivators who have a heart of universal love. However, in recent years, this school has expanded too fast, and there are crooks and honest people mixed in the school. There's no lack of these bastards on the Grand Cloud Mountain. Otherwise, why do you think they can't stay in the Southern Heaven region and have to come to the Cloud region to survive? Luli was still puzzled. Obviously, she couldn't understand. Therefore, Wang Lu patted her head. Remember these 3 conclusions. First, the beast taming school people are lying. Second, therefore, these beast taming school people are not good people. Third, therefore, when we kill them, we don't need to have any guilt and hesitation. Luli thought for a moment and then nodded. I understand. The nearby Xiao Qi was surprised and asked, "This child?" Wang Lu stretched out his hand and circled around his head. Xiao Qi suddenly revealed a look of understanding and then looked at Luli with a bit of sympathy. In short, the situation is like what you see. The last time I passed by here, what I saw was even more tragic than this. Wang Lu asked, "So you ate the dogs?" Xiao Qi indifferently shrugged. "What else can I do? Being put on the beast-taming collar and having their primordial spirit refined by this life vitality gathering array is basically a dead end. Leaving behind an incomplete primordial spirit and a corporeal body, which will be squeezed by the beast-taming school to produce negative emotions to refine the beast-taming collar. I thought that since I'm going to die sooner or later, I might as well let them die in my stomach. That way, I can reincarnate in the future." Wang Lu nodded to show his understanding. This Zen Master Guru was obviously not a dog lover. Killing these thousands of spirit dogs, freeing them, could be considered a good deed. As for how to deal with the corpses, obviously, she wasn't kind enough to be willing to bury them. Thus, putting them in her stomach could be considered as passable. "I just pity those thousands of dogs that died in your stomach. How innocent they are." Xiao Qi angrily said, Hey, how do you teach your Lingjian school Chinese? Dying in your stomach and dying in your stomach are 2 different concepts. I'm sorry, but since the situation is like this, then I have no problem with it. This kind of heartless branch, indeed, the sooner they die, the sooner they'll be safe. For Wang Lu, since both sides had the same goal, and this senior Qingyang didn't have any intolerable flaws in her character, then both sides could cooperate happily. Good. I knew that the disciple that fellow Wang Wu accepted must also be a straightforward person. Wang Lu reserved his opinion on this. Having obtained Wang Lu's support, Xiao Qi was in a good mood. Turning his gaze, he saw the thousands of spirit dogs in the abyss of suffering and wiped his mouth. In order to celebrate our cooperation, why don't we have a good meal first? Then, just as he was about to break the array and plunder the corpses of those spirit dogs, Wang Lu was taken aback. Are you sure? Right here? So violent and direct? Facing Xiao Qi's complicated gaze, Wang Lu immediately explained, the last time Beast Master School suffered such a big loss, it's impossible for them not to be vigilant and let you do it again. We sneaked all the way here. Although the process was smooth, it may be the result of the other side throwing a long line to catch a big fish. With that, in order to deepen his persuasiveness, Wang Lu also pulled Lu Li over. Xian Air, I think we should withdraw now. Tell me about your intuition. Lu Li earnestly said, I agree with senior brother's point of view. If we continue, it may be dangerous. Xiao Qi's gaze became more complicated. Do you think a fool's judgment is convincing? I am not a fool. Lu Li softly but firmly protested. Master has taken me to do a test. Wang Lu snappily pressed her head. Shut up. Unfortunately, it was too late. In the end, Xiao Qi couldn't resist the temptation of good food. Ignoring Wang Lu and Lu Li's persuasion, He slightly opened his right hand and made a gesture with his 5 fingers. A mysterious spell quickly condensed, which drove the surrounding spiritual energy to change. However, at this time, a sudden change occurred. The peaceful surrounding spiritual energy suddenly surged up. The surrounding mountains suddenly rose up, forming a natural cage, trapping the several people inside. The surrounding mountain rock barrier blocked the sunlight, casting a heavy shadow. A sharp, slightly immature but no lack of hostility female voice echoed in the cage. "I've been waiting for you for a long time. Sure enough, you guys came." Chapter 184. Shao-Chi tried to break the array and plunder the spirit dog. However, just as her spell was about to take shape, a strong change in the surrounding spiritual energy interrupted her spell. Shao-Chi frowned and withdrew her right hand. Then, she heard a woman's voice reverberating in the valley. "Zen Master Guru, you're really bold. You actually dare to come to my Grand Cloud Mountain. Don't you know this is a dead end?" While speaking, in the air, a slender figure appeared in their line of sight. That person was obviously the elder of the Grand Cloud Mountain division of the Beast Master School. Through the teleportation array, he released an astonishing, imposing manner as soon as he appeared. His enormous magical power was like a surging tide, surging and surging violently. It was like the tide contained a profound rhythm. With just this one move, he revealed his peak gold core stage cultivation level. "Tisk, look at what you've done. You've provoked a question mark level old monster." Wang Lu helplessly sighed. His right hand has already reached into his mustard seed bag. Inside was a spirit sword heavenly talisman, which could, at the critical moment, ignore any imprisonment and directly send him back to the mountain. Its effect was simple, direct, and violent. In Wang Lu's view, it was as defying as the save point. It was his trump card as a professional adventurer. However, once he used this trump card, his professional adventurer's reputation would be smashed by half. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not consider it. However, in the face of a peak-level King Pill opponent, if he didn't use it, he would die. If not for the unfathomable Zen Master Guru by his side, he would have immediately activated the heavenly talisman and brought Luli back to the mountain to take refuge. He simply couldn't let a peak-level King Pill person make the first move. Humph. What's there to be afraid of? It's just a mere peak-level King Pill. Senior Shao-Chi curled her lips in disdain. Wang Lu finally made up his mind, thinking, sure enough, she's my master's friend, so her strength is very high. A mere peak-level King Pill is an insurmountable peak for a middle-level foundation establishment cultivator, but for a senior, it's just a novice village guard. Looking at the slender figure in the air again, Wang Lu couldn't help but exclaim, "Catwoman?" It turned out that the Beast Master School elder who appeared to suppress the scene was actually a cat-eared girl. She seemed to be only 12 or 13 years old, even more immature than Luli. The 2 furry ears on her head were exceptionally quick-witted, and there were several strands of whiskers on her cheeks that constantly trembled along with the girl's mouth opening and closing when she spoke. There were also the sharp nails on both of her hands, all of which showed the inhuman characteristics. Most likely, it really wasn't a human cultivator but a spirit cat. This kind of situation wasn't rare in the beast taming school. Once a spirit beast reached a certain level of cultivation, it could become a regular cultivator of the school and enjoy all the rights and privileges. However, it would be difficult for it to be promoted to the senior management level. However, the elders of the branch established in the Cloud State were not high-level managers. At the same time, looking at the cat-eared girl, Wang Lu also understood the hardships of the thousands of spirit hounds in the kernel. It was the law of heaven and earth that cats and dogs did not conform to each other. Letting a spirit cat serve as the elder of the branch, naturally, the spirit hounds around the Grand Cloud Mountain would have a hard time. If it were jackals, wolves, tigers, leopards, and the like, which needed a lot of fresh meat to maintain their nutrition, the creatures of the entire Grand Cloud Mountain would bear enormous pressure. However, The cat-eared girl who appeared in the air didn't expect that under the pressure of her King Pill's imposing manner, there would actually be someone who dared to be absent-minded. In her eyes, Zen Master Guru was already no different than a dead person, and then turned to Wang Lu and Lu Li. The few of you have been trapped by my beast taming school's 5 mountain broken veins great array. No matter how big your means are, don't even think about escaping. Zen Master Guru is a dead end, but my beast taming school is merciful. You too are accomplices. If you immediately surrender and hand over the spirit hounds, I can spare your lives. The cat-eared girl tried to make her imposing manner appear majestic and awe-inspiring. However, that sharp childish voice made her words seem somewhat ridiculous. Of course, under the peak-level magical power fluctuation of King Pill, only a few people could laugh out loud. However, as a professional adventurer, Wang Lu was most disgusted by this kind of unskilled threat. Inwardly, he was sick of it, so he retorted sarcastically, "Cat girl, if you change into a maid costume and serve us tea, we can spare your life. Otherwise, my martial uncle Zen Master Gur will definitely catch you and cook you as a side dish to go with the wine." Presumptuous. The cat-eared girl issued a sharp and ear-piercing roar. Her voice was like a tide, causing the sky to shake and the earth to shake. It was as if an invisible blade wind blew in the air, causing the surrounding rocks to rustle and the trees to fall one after another. And this was just the aftermath. The main power of the scream was concentrated on Xiaoqi. Although the one who provoked her was Wang Lu, how could she put a middle-level foundation establishment cultivator in her eyes? She had been cultivating for 300 years, transforming her spirit beast body into a human, using the secret method of beast taming school to wash away her demonic energy and turn it into a righteous magical power. Now, King Pill was at the peak level. Yuanying was just around the corner. Foundation establishment cultivators were like ants to her. Only the unfathomable Zen Master Guru was a bit of a threat to her. This scream was the full power of Taoist King Pill. Wang Lu, who was standing next to Xiaoqi, was only affected by the aftermath. He also felt that his non-phase sword defense was showing signs of collapse. His whole body's magical power surged along with the sound waves, somewhat out of control. Even his non-phase sword bone was shaken and cracked. Fortunately, the defensive and life-saving ability of non-phase method was really heaven-defying. His primordial spirit, which was condensed into an intangible body, was protected by both his physical body and magical power, so it was barely not injured and could still maintain the operation of non-phase method. As for Senior 7th Madam, who was in the main battlefield, Humph. Accompanied by a cold humph, this finely dressed woman took 3 steps back and made a series of hand seals. Dozens of spells condensed and then broke in front of her, as if blooming gorgeous fireworks. Just as Wang Lu was curious about what kind of trick she was playing, he saw Senior 7th Madam's complexion finally changed, and then she spurted out a big mouthful of blood. Was this the blood shadow divine skill? Spraying blood to injure the enemy? However, looking at her pale face, it was obvious that her injury was not light. Wang Lu had to admit the tragic reality. Zen Master Guru, you're King deceiving me. Just now, you shamelessly boasted that a mere peak King Pill cultivator was nothing to worry about, but in the blink of an eye, you spat out geraniums and got seriously injured? Aren't you Master's good friend? How could you be a friend if your strength is so weak? Don't tell me you're the friend who usually hugs Wang Wu's thigh and yells, "Expert, let's be friends." Then, facing Wang Lu's contemptuous, angry, and surprised eyes, 7th Madam struggled to open her mouth to defend herself. A mere peak King Pill cultivator, if my real body was here, how could I let her be so arrogant? Unfortunately, I'm just an incarnation, so my skill is not enough. I don't care if you're the real body or the incarnation. If your skill is not enough, then just obediently kneel down. Don't pretend to be a master and trick your own people. However, seeing that the situation was getting worse, Wang Lu signaled Lu Li to come closer and reach out to hug him. At the same time, he walked slowly against the whistling sound and approached Xiaoqi's side, ready to launch the heavenly talisman to take her away from danger. It doesn't matter. I can't beat her, but if I want to run, she can't stop me. With that, a golden light shone from Shaoqi's hand, and a thick and powerful Buddhist staff appeared in his hand. Shaoqi slammed the Buddhist staff on the ground and shouted, "All living beings are equal." Suddenly, the mountains were shaken. The mountain barrier that was forcibly pulled up by the 5 mountain broken veins technique was forcibly pressed down in front of this all living beings equal spell. The originally unbreakable cage suddenly disintegrated. The cat-eared girl was taken aback. She didn't expect that the impregnable array would be so easily destroyed. However, she soon realized the problem. It was the Buddhist staff in the hands of Zen Master Guru. The essence was restrained, the magical power was self-generated, and the power was agile, just like a living creature. This was a spiritual treasure, without a doubt, a middle-rank spiritual treasure. For ordinary sects, a low-rank spiritual treasure was enough to make king pill cultivators fight until their heads bled. As a high-rank sect, the beast-taming school situation was naturally much better. Generally, high-rank king pill cultivators mostly had spiritual treasures on them. However, this cat-eared girl was, after all, a spiritual beast in human form. She consumed too much energy when she transformed. She only had 2 life-bound magical treasures in her hands. She was still far from a spiritual treasure, let alone a middle-rank spiritual treasure. No wonder she was able to escape so easily after stealing the spiritual dog last time. It turned out that she had such a good treasure. The cat-eared girl's eyes became hot. 2 sharp teeth protruded from the corners of her lips, and her pupils contracted, revealing her hunter's instinct. Unfortunately, it was still a bit too late. As soon as Shaoqi's Buddhist staff came out, the 5 mountain broken veins technique was broken. In the next moment, she shouted, "Please open the door of convenience." Thus, a half-real, half-illusory door expanded from the tip of the Buddhist staff. Shaoqi held the staff in his right hand, and his left hand pulled Wang Lu and took a step forward. Although it was just one step, it just crossed the door of convenience. The next moment, they were already outside the Grand Cloud Mountain. After escaping from the predicament of the Grand Cloud Mountain, before Shaoqi's feet landed on the ground, she looked back and saw Wang Lu holding the sword of Mount Coin in one hand, Lu Li in the other, and a smart model dog hanging on his leg. This group of people really ran away. Thus, Shaoqi's heart calmed down. She directly lay down on the ground, gasping for breath. Just now, she had to take the cat-eared girl's scream, so her internal injury was not light. However, her cultivation method was quite mysterious, so she quickly calmed down the disordered magical power in her body. The Buddhist staff in her right hand also emitted a faint light, helping her to heal her injury. Hee, what do you think? Thrilling and exciting, right? Your method of changing the topic to avoid embarrassment is really poor. Wang Lu mercilessly exposed her. Ha ha ha, just a moment ago, you're still boasting shamelessly, arrogantly looking down on people, but the next moment, you've been seriously injured and have to flee in panic. You're a proper villain template. Shaoqi's face turned red. Alas, a momentary slip, just a momentary slip. Even a wise man would make a mistake. Let alone if my real body was here, I could kill her with just a finger. Therefore, a momentary carelessness is excusable. The problem is, your real body isn't here. What do you mean by your so-called avatar and real body? Is your real body referring to that Buddhist staff? It was rare for Wang Lu to take the initiative to change the topic, so Shaoqi immediately explained, "Of course not, the so-called real body." Hey, didn't you teach it in Lingjian school? Among the several ways to advance from yuanying to deity stage, one of them is to refine the avatar, divide the primordial spirit, and wait for the avatar to advance to yuanying, and then combine the avatar into one, breaking through the barrier in one fell swoop. Wang Lu said, "I've taught it, but I really can't associate your appearance with a peak yuanying stage expert." Chapter 185. There were several ways for a Yuanian cultivator to advance to the Huashan realm. The incarnation training method used by Shao Qi was one of them. Of course, it was considered an unorthodox method. Although Wang Lu had learned about it, he couldn't think of anything. However, since your main body is a great expert at the peak of the nascent soul stage, as long as you call your main body over, wouldn't this Grand Cloud Mountain division be flattened in minutes? Shao Qi said, "It's because it's not convenient to call the real body, so I need your help. Now, I'm in the midst of the soul formation tribulation. My main body is divided into many parts, and I'm in between existing and not existing. However, the main body of this tribulation has yet to appear, so..."
Wang Lu sighed.
So to put it simply, you're a mid-level king pill weakling now? You, a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator, actually have the nerve to criticize me as weak? At least I won't provoke an opponent I can't afford to offend. Was I the one who pointed at his nose and scolded him? If you hadn't given me the wrong information, I would have run away long ago. Forget it, I'm not going to argue with an ignorant junior like you. Anyway, since we have the same goal, then what should we do next? As Shao Qi spoke, he looked at Wang Lu with an inquiring gaze. Wang Lu was flattered. Hey, do you, a senior master, need me to show you the way? Since you're Wang Wu's disciple, you're definitely more capable than me, so isn't it better for you to think of the troublesome things? Besides, I don't put on any airs, so you don't have to feel burdened. No, my burden is definitely not because of your arrogance. Now that things had developed to this point, Wang Lu could not trust the senior, who was holding a Buddhist staff and had a look of anticipation on his face. However, having said that, no matter how unreliable he was, after all, a Taoist master king pill who had the vision of a peak Yuanian stage cultivator, and he also had a spiritual treasure in his hand. His real strength was much stronger than the combination of him and Luli. Just now, if she didn't have misgivings that the Grand Cloud Mountain was the Beast Master School's home ground, she would have directly wielded her Buddhist staff to fight with that cat-eared girl. Moreover, even though he encountered a small setback on the Grand Cloud Mountain, Wang Lu didn't plan to stop here. On the contrary, after witnessing the scene in the call, the thought of flattening this branch became even more intense. In fact, even though the actions of the beast taming school had already entered the path of evil, it was not considered unusual in the continent of the 9 prefectures. All of the famous righteous sects had more or less similar actions in private. For example, Shengjing sect was known as the leader of the Wanxian League, but didn't they have Taoist Master Jifeng in the Blue River region? In the Southern Heaven region, the actions of the Beast Master School were sometimes 100 times more intense than this. There were even some cultivators who, because mortals ate the forbidden meat, that is, the meat of their beloved spirit beasts, would kill them and even exterminate their entire clan. It was an out-and-out demonic path. But, so what? The cultivator, who killed them, would simply apologize and go into seclusion for a few years. After that, the matter would be considered settled. No one would feel that there was a problem with that. Even the wisdom sect that was founded by Wang Lu, although it was now on the right track and appeared to be a lot more formal, but in the initial capital accumulation stage, using the burning blood technique to activate the skill was still an undeniable fact. This kind of thing was common in the immortal cultivation world, but conversely, because of this kind of thing, it was also normal. When Taoist Master Jifeng met Wang Wu, his years of painstaking effort were all for naught. Wang Lu's wisdom sect's luck was a bit better. At the beginning of its development, it didn't encounter any senior expert who came forward to meddle in its business. If it did, Wang Lu could only think of a way to deal with that senior. Now, Wang Lu really wanted to meddle in this matter on the Grand Cloud Mountain. He wasn't a senior expert, but he didn't necessarily need to have the means of a senior expert to meddle in this matter. Speaking of which, the Beast Master School collects spirit dogs to refine spiritual treasures in order to catch the young immortal beast. What exactly is the origin of that immortal beast? Shao Qi said, "It's not clear. At present, no one knows. Even the Beast Master School can only judge its level, which is roughly equivalent to a peak Shudan stage cultivator, and can't distinguish its breed. However, Most of the immortal beasts in this world are unique. Why are you interested? Of course, isn't it obvious? Wang Lu smiled, and then turned his head to point at the distant Grand Cloud Mountain. Beast Master School has been operating here for a year, changing the feng shui line, setting up the spirit pool, and setting up the array. How much would it cost? Shao Qi calculated. Not counting the manpower, about 1 or 2 million spirit stones should be enough. Yes, this Grand Cloud Mountain hasn't been operating for a long time, so the investment isn't much. Therefore, even if it's leveled, it's not a big deal. But how much is the value of a young immortal beast? Shao Qi was startled, and then he said with a smile, then it's a priceless treasure. The stage of a real immortal beast was almost beyond the upper limit of the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions, equivalent to a true immortal from the upper realm. For example, the current leader of the Wuxia League, Hichu Daoren, was 1 level higher. In the past, when a 9-tailed fox came to Spirit Sword Mountain, the 5 uniques of the Wuxia League had to use their trump card sealing method to barely suppress it. Thus, its high value is naturally not difficult to imagine. If it was a quasi-immortal beast like Fenrir, the value of a young immortal beast could at least be in the hundreds of millions of spirit stones, but a genuine immortal beast could not be measured by spirit stones. Of course, the classification of Fenrir was more or less based on the discrimination of the 9 regions against the Western continent. It didn't necessarily mean that Fenrir's strength was not up to the standard of an immortal beast. However, after all, there was no actual example, so it was not convincing enough. The reason why Wang Lu raised the issue of a mortal beast was naturally to make a fuss about it. Right now, the Beast Master School of the Grand Cloud Mountain was trying their best to catch the young immortal beast. Perhaps the spirit dog was not up to the standard of an immortal beast, but since the Beast Master School attached so much importance to it, it was like a well-placed target, so it would be a waste not to hit it. So, what should we do? Shao Qi completely gave up thinking, and just waited for Wang Lu's order. Wang Lu bluntly said, there are 2 ways to do it. The first one is very simple. As long as the news of Beast Master School catching the young immortal beast is spread out, naturally, there will be a lot of trouble coming to our door. We just need to look on coldly from the sidelines, and then look for an opportunity to take advantage of the situation. It's easy and effortless. Shao Qi clapped his hands. Oh, that's a good idea. But there's also a problem. The gimmick of the young immortal beast is too loud, and the Beast Master School, as a high-rank sect, has strong strength and a solid reputation, so they are determined to get it. Once the matter is made public, several Yuanying and deity stage cultivators will fly over from the southern heaven region to suppress the scene. If we want to fish in troubled waters, it will actually be more difficult than now. That makes sense. After all, it's the young immortal beast. Wang Lu said, so the second method is to quietly make a move, so that the wastewood of the Beast Master School division can't react in time, and then it will become an established fact. Then, not to mention anything else, at least my Lingjian School's reputation can be used. Shao Qi asked, an established fact? What do you mean? Because the Beast Master School hasn't caught the young immortal beast, so at present, it's still ownerless. In theory, it's first come, first served. Yunzhou is a chaotic place, and the Beast Master School hasn't established an unbreakable reputation on the Grand Cloud Mountain. At least, the Wuxia League hasn't withdrawn from this place, so the resources on this land, unless they get their hands on them, there's no such thing as an owner. Of course, this theory won't work on ordinary sections. The result of snatching food from the tiger's mouth will certainly be the Beast Master School coming to smash the place. But would they dare to come to the Lingjian School to find trouble? Shao Qi's eyes lit up. He was very appreciative. I can't see that you've studied this set of rules very thoroughly. Humph, this is the necessary quality of a professional adventurer. Wang Lu is also not polite at all. So for the few of us, the operation is actually very simple. As long as we find the young immortal beast 1 step ahead of the Beast Master School, then I'll activate the heavenly talisman and return to the mountain to take refuge. No matter how big the grievances are, they can only cry, There's no place to reason. Xiao Qi became more and more excited. Well said, but how are we going to find the young immortal beast? As far as I know, although it's not strong, it has a special ability that makes the professionals of the Beast Master School unable to do anything to it. That's why they have no choice but to seek help from the Spirit Treasure Animal Taming Collar. If it's so easy to find, the Beast Master School wouldn't have set up such an inhumane formation like the Life Energy Gathering Formation. Well, we'll have to depend on it. As Wang Lu said this, he used his foot to kick the stupid dog. In any case, it's a quasi-immortal beast. It should have the ability to find a companion, right? Xiao Qi was stunned. Resonance? Yes, I've seen it in the books. The higher the level of the spirit beast, the easier it is for them to resonate with each other. For example, if an ancient treasure is born, the nearby spirit treasures may respond. Although this stupid dog is stupid, it's still a quasi-immortal beast, so it should have the ability to resonate, right? Xiao Qi looked uncertainly at the stupid dog Yao, who was scratching its head with its foot. Are you sure this guy can? It doesn't matter. If we can't find it, we won't give it food. It definitely can. Woof. Feeling the impending crisis, the stupid dog became unprecedentedly nervous. Its pair of dog eyes were perfectly round, and its nose was twitching intensely, sniffing nonstop. This kind of pretense was just like a speech at a meeting. No one took it seriously. Even Xiao Qi, who was familiar with the habits of dogs, only laughed and said, "This animal is quite clever." However, the next moment, Xiao Qi's smile froze. Yao spoke in human language. Don't say it. I think I really have a feeling. Xiao Qi was simply indescribably amazed. It can talk. Wang Lu was also indescribably amazed. Isn't this new? It's not like it's a meat dog. Yao ignored the two people. While sniffing its nose, it seriously said, "There's a strange smell everywhere on this Grand Cloud Mountain. I didn't feel it before, but after what you said, it's probably the same kind of smell." Wang Lu asked, "Can you make a further judgment?" "It's very difficult. Its smell is very scattered. Its smell is everywhere in the 500-li radius of the Grand Cloud Mountain. It's impossible to lock its position. It doesn't matter. It's expected." Wang Lu nodded. If it was so easy to find, the Beast Master School would have gotten it long ago. This time we have plenty of time. The 500-li radius of the Grand Cloud Mountain isn't that big. If we go there ourselves, we'll definitely find some clues. Yao sniffed again and said, "There's a kind of moon smell." Wang Lu was surprised. He casually took out a mooncake from his mustard seed bag and threw it to the stupid dog. "You can even smell this? Is this the moon smell you were talking about?" Yao was also surprised. Then it bit the mooncake and vaguely said, "Probably." After a while, the dog spat out the mooncake. Meat mooncake. Chapter 186. When Wang Lu made up his mind to personally traverse the 1,000-li radius of the Grand Cloud Mountain and find the legendary young immortal beast a step ahead, on top of the Grand Cloud Mountain's forgotten peak, a group of Beast Master School Division elders were experiencing an unforgettable lightning tribulation. The forgotten peak of the Grand Cloud Mountain was the highest peak within a 1,000-li radius, overlooking the surroundings. And on the summit, there was originally a Taoist temple built by the cultivators of a White Dragon Temple, but it had been demolished by the Beast Master School and replaced with a gray palace built with mountain stones. It looked far more rough and fierce than the previous building. However, this palace, which was built and reinforced by a secret method, was trembling amidst the bursts of roars. Large and small cracks appeared on its surface, and dust and gravel rustled down, as if it could collapse at any time. "You two useless pieces of trash." And in the palace, a cat-eared girl with a defeated expression was kneeling in the middle. Next to her was a sturdy, half-naked man with battle scars on his skin. The two people were bombarded by the roars in the palace. They were on the verge of collapse, and blood overflowed from the 7 apertures of their heads. The cat-eared girl's cultivation was far higher than Chiho's, but the pressure she was under was also thousands of times heavier, and she was already overwhelmed. And sitting on the chief seat, the one who emitted the rolling thunder was a valiant cultivator with a body even more sturdy than Chiho. On his thick neck was a tiger's head. This was the great elder of this place, a nascent soul Taoist master, Tiger King Leijin. This tiger-headed great elder was not a spirit beast, but a pure-blooded human cultivator. It was just that when he reached the nascent soul realm, he chose to permanently transform his body. Although he no longer had the appearance of a human, he had the magical abilities of a spirit beast. Today, this tiger's thunder roar was one of them. With a nascent soul-level cultivation, even a peak king pill cultivator would not be able to withstand the thunder roar. Its power was more than 10 times stronger than the cat-eared girl's scream in the kernel. If not for the fact that this Tiger King had no intention to kill, the 11 elders in the palace would not have left a single one alive. And the people present also knew that although Tiger King was furious, he did not have any killing intent. They all raised their cultivation to resist, waiting for Tiger King's anger to dissipate a bit before discussing business. Not long after, the sound of thunder gradually subsided, and everyone felt relieved. However, Tiger King's cold snort made everyone's hearts skip a beat again. It has been more than a year since we came here from the Southern Heaven region. Everyone here is a Taoist master of the King Pill. 1 year is not a long time, but during this period, our investment is by no means small. Including me, more than half of the people here have encountered a bottleneck in their cultivation and need to go into closed-door cultivation as soon as possible. However, for the sake of the sect's grand plan, no one has relaxed for more than a year, not even for a moment. We started from scratch, and the sect didn't give us much support. Every brick and tile in this mountain was built by us, and it cost us a lot. Under his high chair, the 2 rows of elders sitting in front of him secretly nodded. More than 1 year, when they were in the Southern Heaven region, they had made a long-term plan for this matter. Counting those, everyone's investment has been difficult to estimate. Everything we have done has not been in vain. Our group of people came from afar, and in a year's time, we have laid our foundation here. Within a radius of 500 miles around the Grand Cloud Mountain, including the original owner of the White Dragon Temple, as well as more than 10 other large and small immortal cultivation forces, they have all been expelled by us. This mountain can now be said to be in the palm of our hands. Hearing this, the complexion of the 2 rows of elders sank. However, for the next 6 months, we can't even control this small area in the palm of our hands. That beast is hiding in the Grand Cloud Mountain, but we can't even find its shadow. 3 months ago, when the sect's messenger came, can you guess what he said? The elders didn't need to guess. As long as they looked at Tiger King's gloomy face, they knew that those people from the Southern Heaven region absolutely didn't have any good words. I don't want to repeat those words. That day, the messenger spoke rudely, so I have personally twisted his chin. The elders turned pale with fright. 3 months ago, that messenger was the sovereign's favorite person. The elders on the Grand Cloud Mountain have been given the cold shoulder by the sect. Now, wouldn't it be? Since 5 years ago, when we learned about the moon spirit of the Grand Cloud Mountain, everything we have done has been for it. Since we have walked this road until now, we have no way out. No matter what difficulties we encounter, whether it is the Southern Heaven region's hindrance, whether that moon spirit has a new magical ability, or whether it is that bastard Zen Master Guru blocking our way, the only thing we have to do is to crush all these problems. For this, we have to do it by hook or by crook at all costs. Tiger King said, and fiercely clenched his fist. Unexpectedly, he squeezed the air and made a deafening explosion sound. Ling Yan, you have always been responsible for Zen Master Guru's matter. This time, it was also your mistake that let him run away. Now that we are in need of people, I will give you the opportunity to redeem yourself. You have to personally catch that bastard. The cat-eared girl hastily nodded her head to express her gratitude, but her quick-witted eyes also revealed a trace of doubt. In terms of cultivation, the middle-level king pill Zen Master Guru naturally couldn't be compared with her, who was at the peak of the king pill. However, the other party's cultivation method was brilliant, his background was deep, and his comprehensive strength was not much different from hers. That day, if she wasn't inside the Beast Master School's array, the cat-eared girl actually didn't have full confidence that she could defeat the opponent. Not to mention that Zen Master Guru also had a middle-level spiritual treasure in his hand, which was enough to reverse the situation of strength and weakness. Now, Tiger King wanted her to redeem herself by capturing Zen Master Guru, but if she really went to his door, it would be strange if she didn't use her Buddhist staff to beat her brains out. Tiger King glanced at her and coldly said, "What? Do you think it's difficult?" "No, this subordinate doesn't dare." The cat-eared girl's cold sweat poured down, and her body trembled like a sieve. "Humph, that dog bastard's cultivation is not high, but she has a good treasure in her hand. You're alone, so you're indeed not her opponent. However, I won't let you die in vain, so I'll lend you a person." The cat-eared girl's heart was startled, and then immediately became happy. The cultivation of this Tiger King's 4 spirit beasts was not inferior to hers, and each of them had their own magical abilities. They were a rare and powerful partner. If she really had the help of those 4 spirit beasts, dealing with Zen Master Guru and those 2 small fries would be an easy matter. "Well, come in." Following Tiger King's call, a person came from the back of the hall. This person had the smell of the Southern Heaven region, so it was obvious that he was the reinforcement that Tiger King had just called from the headquarters. However, as soon as this person appeared, the cat-eared girl, Ling Yan, was dumbfounded as if she was struck by lightning. How could it be him? Looking at the middle-aged cultivator who respectfully saluted Tiger King with a gentle smile on his face, Ling Yan's body involuntarily began to tremble. Her skin felt a tingling sensation, and her heart was aching. She couldn't help but recall the cruel past. Today, Ling Yan has successfully transformed. Although a small part of her body still had the characteristics of a spirit beast, she was still a cultivator of the Beast Master School, enjoying all the treatment of human cultivators. However, before that, she was just an ordinary spirit beast of the Beast Master School. She was captured by the cultivators from the Barren Mountain, and after undergoing harsh training, she learned the rules of the human world. And at that time, the one responsible for training her was the brown-skinned cultivator before her. Beast Trainer Xia. Ling Yan. It's been a long time. In the face of that friendly, smiling face, Ling Yan's whole body trembled, and she took a few steps back. In the past, whenever a Xia revealed such a smile, it meant the beginning of the pain. Seeing this abnormality, Tiger King frowned. "I heard that in the Southern Heaven region, the 2 of you have the fate of master and disciple. You should know each other very well and have a tacit understanding with each other. In the past, the efficiency of your cooperation was also good, so I called him here. Ling Yan, do you have a problem?" Ling Yan's eyes widened. She wanted to open her mouth, but being stared at by Tiger King's impatient eyes, she was unable to say anything. Perhaps Tiger King knew something about the past, but he didn't care. As he said, the 2 of them had the fate of master and disciple, so they had a tacit understanding with each other, and their efficiency was indeed good. If one didn't consider the pain that Ling Yan had experienced, they were indeed a perfect partner. As for Ling Yan's pain, did Tiger King need to care? "I have no problem." Ling Yan clenched her fists, constantly telling herself in her heart, "I am no longer the original me. Now that I am at the peak of King Pill, I don't need to be afraid of a mere middle-level King Pill, Xia. Xia has been cultivating for more than 200 years, yet he still couldn't go any further. He is far inferior to me." However, while she was thinking, Xia's voice suddenly came from behind her. It's only been 30 years since we last met, but you're already a powerhouse at the peak of King Pill. What an enviable good route." While speaking, a few ice-cold fingers quietly rested on the back of Ling Yan's neck. A cold and gloomy energy suddenly spread out, as if it wanted to freeze her entire jade mansion. Ling Yan turned pale with fright. Just as she was about to summon her magical power to resist, that force disappeared without a trace. And Xia himself, from the beginning to the end, stood beside Tiger King, not moving even half a step. Beads of cold sweat dripped down from the girl's head. Her heart was in a mess. However, at this time, no one would pay attention to her abnormal state. Tiger King arranged the matter of Zen Master Dog Meat, and then began to arrange for everyone to continue to arrange the array formation on the Grand Cloud Mountain, and to refine the spirit treasure in order to capture the immortal beast moon spirit. Everyone held their breath, not daring to miss even the slightest detail. It was now approaching the 7th month, and the critical moment was getting closer and closer. Tiger King's task arrangement was getting tighter and tighter, so no one had the leisure to pay attention to other people's situation. After a long time, after Tiger King had arranged everyone's task, the present elders left one after another. However, there was one person who stayed in the hall with a pale complexion. That person was Chi-Ho. After losing Silverback and White Teeth, his 2 great spirit beasts died in battle, his magical treasure was taken away, and his cultivation base was greatly reduced, almost unable to maintain his king pill stage. In many people's view, this young elder has lost his value. And just now, when the task was assigned, the part that once belonged to Chi-Ho was also distributed by Tiger King to the other elders. In action, no position. Tiger King's hint seemed to be clear enough, but Chi-Ho was really unwilling to let it go. Great Elder, however, the Tiger King completely ignored him. Without even looking at him, he turned around and left the main seat of the hall. Chi-Ho was completely disheartened. He only felt a burst of stuffiness in his chest. The Golden King pill in his jade mansion was covered with a layer of haze, which unexpectedly showed signs of cracking. However, at this time, a feminine force poured in from behind him, stabilizing the turbulence in his jade mansion. Chi-Ho turned his head in surprise, but then he saw a slightly strange face. A Xia? Chi-Ho didn't know much about this beast tamer from the southern heaven region. He only knew that his cultivation base was just middle-level king pill, and in the last 50 years, he didn't have any big progress. In the immortal cultivation path, he was already a waste. However, he was skilled in beast taming, so he was recognized by some great elders in the southern heaven region. Moreover, the great elder of the Grand Cloud Mountain, Tiger King, used some unknown method to transfer him over to become Ling Yan's partner. In short, he was a person who was far away from him. After all, even if the other party was a waste in the immortal cultivation path, he was still a waste in the middle-level king pill, which was far stronger than him. Why would such a person look for him? Xia smiled. That brown-black face of his carried a trace of coldness that made Chi-Ho horrified. There's something I want your help with. It just so happens that the Great Elder didn't assign you any task just now. I want to take advantage of your free time to go to Celestial Water Lake. Chapter 187. The radius of 500 miles around the Grand Cloud Mountain couldn't be said to be big, but the mountain terrain was continuous and complex. In particular, the spiritual energy along the feng shui line changed rapidly, which converged and surged in the mountains, making the mountain environment even more changeable. When flying from the sky, perhaps the Grand Cloud Mountain couldn't be considered as vast, but when walking on the ground, in 10 days or half a month, one could only walk a corner of the mountain. Wang Lu has been walking on the Grand Cloud Mountain for a whole week, but he still hasn't walked through the surrounding several peaks. On one hand, the landlord of this place, Beast Master School, has strengthened their vigilance. The number of patrolling disciples and spirit beasts were far more than usual, which brought a lot of obstacles to Wang Lu's hiking plan. On the other hand, the stupid dog that led the way also got into trouble. It often went around in circles, leading Wang Lu for half a day before it innocently whimpered and said that it was lost. Wang Lu walked on the Grand Cloud Mountain in order to borrow the quasi-immortal beast Quan Zouhua's power of resonance to find the immortal beast with the moon flavor ahead of the Beast Master School. Unfortunately, after a week, He found out that this stupid dog was really useless. Of course, the stupid dog has its own explanation for this. Resonance should be useful. In the moonless night, I can feel the traces of its existence on the mountain, and I can even lock its approximate position. However, the other side clearly doesn't want to see us, deliberately hiding. The resonance is weak, so even if it deliberately disguises itself, I can't do anything about it. With the stupid dog's level of intelligence, to organize such a well-organized speech, it could be seen that it was really anxious and crazy. Therefore, although Wang Lu was helpless, he could only throw the marinated bone from his mustard seed bag to it, letting it gnaw to its heart's content. After a week of climbing the mountain, this was the result. Wang Lu couldn't help but frown, inwardly thinking about how to proceed to the next step. As for the other two people, they didn't seem to have any pressure. Lu Li was naive and only longed for the beautiful scenery of the mountain. In any case, along the way, Wang Lu entertained her with good food and drinks, so she had no worries and had a particularly carefree time. As for the Immortal Beast and Beast Master School, obviously, she didn't care. However, the other companions seemed intriguing. In the past few days, Senior Shao Qi and Lu Li had a very pleasant conversation. Her Buddhist name was Gluttonous Dog Meat Master, and obviously, she had quite a bit of understanding about food. Needless to say, the characteristics of Lu Li were also needless to say. In the past few days, the two of them wished they could become sworn sisters. When they talked about delicacies from all over the world, even the genius Wang Lu couldn't get a word in. Although he had read a lot of books, he hadn't tasted many delicacies in person, so he couldn't participate in the conversation between the two professionals. However, Shao Qi's activity was limited to this. In addition to eating, drinking, and having fun, he didn't talk about anything else. When he didn't talk to Lu Li, he just silently followed behind Wang Lu, following Quan Zhouhua around in circles, seemingly indifferent. Therefore, Wang Lu asked Qingyang, "Aren't you anxious? What's the hurry?" Shao Qi asked. "I'm not interested in that immortal beast anyway." Wang Lu asked, "You and the Beast Master School have an irreconcilable enmity of killing your father?" Shao Qi spat. "You're the one who has an enmity of killing my father. Originally, I really don't like the Beast Master School. However, in the past few days, my interest in the Beast Master School has faded. If I can destroy this division, then I'll destroy it. If not, then it doesn't matter. I'm not the same as you, master and disciple, so I don't necessarily have to do things with results. The most important thing for people to live is to be happy. How about I cook a bowl of noodles for you to eat?" Wang Lu snappily said, "Even if you cook a bowl of noodles for me to eat, I won't be happy. Alas, there's no one under me. I have to do everything by myself." Shao Qi, on the other hand, found it funny. "Who forced you to do things? You and the Beast Master School don't have any enmity of killing your father or snatching your wife. Even if the scene in the valley that day, as well as the wrongdoing of some of their elders, made you two have enmity, it's not that you can't let it go. So why are you so persistent?" Wang Lu, on the other hand, seriously answered this question. "Since I've decided to do it, then I'll try my best to do it. Professional adventurers don't have the habit of giving up halfway." Oh, this explanation makes sense. Shao Qi very simply accepted Wang Lu's explanation and nodded. "You two are indeed worthy to be called master and disciple. Your style of doing things is exactly the same. But this is strange. Your master has no choice but to work hard. She has already become used to working hard. Your aptitude and opportunities are far better than your master's. Is it necessary to work so hard?" The two of them were just casually chatting, but upon hearing Shao Qi's words, Wang Lu's interest was immediately piqued. "My master has no choice. I'd like to hear the details." Shao Qi was surprised. "You're her disciple. Didn't she tell you about her matters?" Then he immediately felt relieved. "That's true. With her temperament, she definitely wouldn't tell you about those things." Wang Lu immediately said, "So it's up to you, Qingyang, to uncover her dark history." Seeing that Wang Lu's eyes were sparkling, Shao Qi couldn't help but find it funny. Usually, you always talk bad about your master, but now you put on the face of a fan. Actually, it's not a big deal. I don't know much about the specific things. After all, she and I are just fair-weather friends. It's just that we've known each other for a long time, so I know more. In fact, you've been cultivating with her for so many years, so you should have already seen the clues. His words were like a mountain of mist, but Wang Lu actually understood and nodded. Actually, I can see the problem from your cultivation method. Look at Lu Li beside you. She cultivates the ancient inheritance of brilliant sword heart, which pays particular attention to the unity of man and nature. Therefore, when she walks, sits, or lies down, her whole person seems to be integrated with the environment. Look at her walk. The distance of each step is different, but all of them fit the needs of the environment. The surrounding spiritual energy brushes past her body and comes out from her back, completely unaffected. However, when she really wants to move, the surrounding spiritual energy within a kilometer radius will move according to her heart. Of course, this is still far from the highest level of brilliant sword heart, but its nature has already manifested. As for you, when you walk, the distance of each step is exactly the same. Except for when you meditate, when your whole body is sealed, the surrounding spiritual energy can't penetrate even the slightest bit, and the magical power within your body won't flow out. What do you think this means? Although Shao Qi didn't clearly say the answer, how could he not understand it? Brilliant sword heart is an ancient inheritance. In ancient times, the surrounding spiritual energy was rich, and opportunities were everywhere. At that time, the cultivators were also high-spirited. As long as their aptitude wasn't too bad, they would advance triumphantly on the road of immortal cultivation. After all, the environment was too good. Therefore, the cultivation method that was born at that time often emphasized the integration with the environment and more use of the environment. As for this non-phase method, it's clearly a cultivation method that was born in a barren land. When Master invented this thing, she must have been under a lot of pressure. If not, how could 10 years ago, when he first passed this method to her, he solemnly said that the most important thing in immortal cultivation was to be hard enough? However, I can't guess what it is exactly. As a result, Shao Qi shrugged his shoulders. You can't guess? There are so many obvious clues. How could you not guess? 20 years ago, when I went on experiential learning with your master, even a simple and honest person like me could see a lot of things. How could you not see it? Although your Lingjian school has always been weak among the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League, at least 200 years ago, the number of people in your school can't be considered to have withered. More than 100 years ago, it was known as the Golden Generation in your school. More than 100 talented, immortal cultivation disciples shone brightly, like the stars in the sky. That period of history might not be mentioned in your Spirit Sword Mountain, but most of the elders in the immortal cultivation world in the 9 regions know about it. However, Wang Lu hadn't heard much about this. He had been cultivating for 10 years, but he didn't go down the mountain for experiential learning for a long time. Thus, he didn't know about the concept of the Golden Generation. However, at this time, he could roughly guess the follow-up. That Golden Generation was now only left with 10 people from the Heavenly Sword Hall. Obviously, the Lingjian school had suffered an unusually tragic blow, which led to less than 1 out of 10 talented disciples. What was even more frightening was, perhaps even the teachers of that era were also lost. Other sects, whether it was the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League or the first-rank sects like the Wanxiang sect, in addition to the sect leader and elders, most of the time there would be some Grand Supreme Elders who were in closed-door training, whose seniority was even higher than the sect leader. And the number and strength of the Grand Supreme Elders were often the direct reflection of a sect's heritage. Lingjian school didn't have a single Grand Supreme Elder. Above Feng Yin, all of them were enshrined in the ancestral hall. There was not a single living person, which formed an unusually conspicuous gap. Now, it seemed like this was also the result of that great catastrophe. And his master Wang Wu, in the great catastrophe, invented the non-phase method in order to survive. She said that the most important thing in the immortal cultivation was to be hard enough, not to act like a hoodlum in broad daylight, but from the bottom of her heart. Perhaps that set of defensive survival methods seemed ridiculous to many people, but 100 years ago, the golden generation was almost extinct, and Wang Wu, who had a mediocre spirit root, actually survived. The dead genius was just a corpse, but the living Wang Wu could bring harm to the world. Who was superior and who was inferior, at a glance, was clear. Then, as mentioned by Shao Qi, his master loved to work hard. It was obviously not because she was diligent in cultivation, but purely because if she didn't work hard, she would die. Thinking of this, his master was really a pitiful person. However, a pitiful person must have a hateful side. Among the 10 Heavenly Sword Hall elders, the other 9 were in good condition, but she was the only one who constantly broke the lower limit. It could be seen that this person also had her own nature. Thinking of this, he heard Shao Qi sigh, "Lingjian School, your generation of disciples is really blessed." Wang Lu frowned and was about to speak when he suddenly saw Shao Qi's expression freeze. Not long after, a feminine, cold, and particularly unpleasant voice came from behind. "I finally meet you." Turning around, Wang Lu saw a gray robe, and under the gray robe was a dark brown face. That person seemed to be only 30 or 40 years old, but his eyes seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life. With Wang Lu's current eyesight, although he could not accurately judge his cultivation level, he knew that this person was not as young as he looked. He must have cultivated for at least 100 years. That person had a smile on his face, but there was not a trace of friendliness. And behind that person stood a petite and exquisite girl. The girl was wearing a large cloak, covering her head and face. However, the hood was pushed up by the girl's 2 pointed ears. And her figure and appearance also looked particularly familiar. It was the peak of King Pill that he met a week ago, the cattered girl. Being approached by the people of Beast Master School, Wang Lu frowned. The sword of Mount Cohen naturally appeared in his hand. His cultivation level was not high, so in front of a King Pill level expert, he simply had no power to protect himself. However, when he used his non-phase sword defense, even a King Pill level expert would have to spend some effort. This effort should be enough for Shao Qi to open the door and escape. However, that dark brown cultivator was the first to open his mouth and said, "We have no malice." Chapter 188. We have no malice? Yes, nowadays, the theme of the immortal cultivation world in 9 regions is peace and development. The number of barbarians who would blatantly shout that they are here to destroy and conquer is getting fewer and fewer. Even if it was clear that the iron hooves of the army trampled on the people, causing them to be in a terrible situation, the general holding the flag would hold up his bloody hands and shout, "We bring you democracy and freedom." Yes, the left hand is democracy, the right hand is freedom. Left hand and right hand, break your tendons and bones. Therefore, when he heard that dark brown cultivator said that he had no malice, Wang Lu smiled. Only dead people have no malice. If you cut your own throat with your sword, I will believe you. That dark brown cultivator ignored this ridicule. His smile didn't change as he continued, "I am a Xia. You've seen the one beside me, cat girl Ling Yan." As a Xia said that, his smile gradually faded, and he assumed a serious posture. However, his pair of dark eyes were still unfathomable. A week ago, we received the instruction of the great elder of the Grand Cloud Mountain to solve the trouble brought by the 3 of you. Wang Lu asked, "And then you came without malice?" A Xia said, "Exactly. Because I always feel that, compared to extermination, many things can be resolved peacefully." Resolved peacefully?
Yes.
For example, here, on behalf of the Beast Master School's Grand Cloud Mountain Division, I implore the 3 of you to let bygones be bygones and bury the hatchet. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu nodded again and again. Since rape doesn't work, you come to seduce them. Your calculation is really good." A Xia smiled again. "Yes, I have carefully calculated it. If I have to fight with the 3 of you, I don't know how much trouble it would be." A middle-rank king pill with a spiritual treasure can freely enter and exit my beast master school's inescapable net. Such an opponent may be defeated or repelled, but if we want to completely solve it, I'm afraid even our great elder may not be able to do it. What's more, we are still short of manpower in our plan. If we split our manpower to deal with the three of you, I'm afraid we would end up in a dilemma. So why bother? Hearing this, Shao-Chi was stunned for a moment and said, "You're quite an interesting person. You're different from those beastly fellows." Xia slightly cupped his hands in obeisance. "To be honest, my cultivation base is shallow, and my aptitude is dull. In this life, I have no hope to go further, so naturally, I'm not as sharp as the other disciples. But because of this, there are some problems that they can't solve, but I can. Actually, in my opinion, there isn't any deep hatred between the two sides. There's no need to make things so tense." Shao-Chi asked, "No deep hatred?" Xia said, "It's just a few thousand dogs. Is it worth it to have such a deep hatred?" It was the elders who dealt with this matter that overreacted. "If you are willing to let bygones be bygones, we will sincerely apologize for our previous rudeness." Saying that, he turned his gaze towards Wang Lu. "Similarly, I also want to apologize to you for Elder Qi Ho's rude behavior." Wang Lu sneered, "If apologies are useful, then what's the point of using hell money?" Xia nodded again and again. Exactly. How can empty words win people's trust? Therefore, in order to show sincerity, look. With that, Xia took out something from his loose robe. Upon seeing it, Wang Lu couldn't help but look sluggish. It was an arm. The muscles were plump and the bones were coarse. His memory was very good. He remembered it was Qi Ho's right hand. As a beast master school elder, he was not strict enough. 2 of his disciples conspired against Your Excellency's spirit beast. Later, he was bewitched and actually wanted his spirit beast to snatch it away. Finally, he even personally intervened. In accordance with Beast Master School's rules, he should be severely punished. Now, I take an arm as an apology. I don't know if I can get Your Excellency's forgiveness? Not to mention the weight of this arm, it was rare for a Daoist Master King Pill to speak so lowly to Wang Lu, a middle-level foundation establishment stage cultivator. Although Xia's pair of strange eyes hid an unfathomable expression, his attitude was really impeccable. In response to this, Wang Lu laughed. "You guys actually know how to make use of waste." That day, he, Lu Li, and Quan Zouhua joined hands to repel Qi Ho, killed his 2 spirit beasts, and broke his magical treasure. Thus, at least 60% of Qi Ho's ability was wasted. Although the King Pill stage was still there, according to Wang Lu's ranking system, it was the 9 levels N of King Pill. Thus, his real strength had long fallen to an unknown degree. And after suffering such a heavy blow, with Qi Ho's aptitude and temperament, how could it be easy for him to make a comeback? He was indeed a waste. And what was the value of a waste's arm? However, Wang Lu unscrupulously pointed out this issue, which was somewhat like a slap in the face. However, Xia was still not angry and continued to nod. "Indeed, this alone is not enough to prove our sincerity. Therefore, Ling Yan, come here." Behind him, the cat-eared girl in the cloak trembled, slowly walked over, and then took off her hood. She was still that young girl who had transformed from a spirit beast, but there was no lack of heroic spirit. However, compared to a few days ago, her complexion was deathly pale, and her spiritual aura had completely disappeared. Furthermore, she wore a black eye patch on her face, covering her right eye. Then the girl stretched out her right hand. In her palm, there was a cat's eye stone that shone brightly. "You?" Shao-Chi was surprised, and even vaguely angry. The nearby Wang Lu also slightly widened his eyes. Obviously, this scene was not within his expectation. Xia was still smiling. Using this high-rank spiritual object as compensation should be able to prove our sincerity. Wang Lu was silent. Shao-Chi was silent. Lu Li incredulously looked at the girl and the cat's eye stone in her hand. She wanted to open her mouth, but she didn't know what to say. Regarding this, even a harsh person would have nothing to say. If Chiho's right hand was just a waste, then this cat's eye stone was a spiritual object created by a peak Taoist master of King Pill. Moreover, by using a secret method to remove the eyeball and turn it into a gem, the lost right eye was almost impossible to regenerate unless one advanced to Yuanying and got a chance to reshape the body. However, from peak King Pill to Yuanying, it was not easy to cross the hurdle. Ling Yan was a spirit beast in human form, so her advancement was several times more difficult than a human cultivator. Now that her body was damaged, the difficulty increased again, and it could be said that her advancement was hopeless. Such a loss, even in a first-rate sect, could not be ignored. The number of Taoist Master of King Pill in Beast Master School was not small, but each of them had their own value. To just casually cripple one of them, it was really... Wang Lu was silent for a moment. His eyes were firmly locked on Xia. The other party's posture was impeccable, but because of this, it made people feel uncomfortable because such conditions simply had irresistible power. Xia's posture was very low, but behind him, there was a mountain-like weight.
Why?
It was very simple. If at this time, Xia took out gold and silver, or even high-rank spiritual treasure, Wang Lu could say, "I, your father, am of noble character and unquestionable integrity, so I don't care." However, the other party's eyeballs were already dug out, and you still don't care? Then what else do you want? Will you only be satisfied when the entire Beast Master School is dead? At that time, the unreasonable one would no longer be the Beast Master School who was in the wrong, but the unforgiving Wang Lu. He had to admit that although this method was vicious and by no means righteous, it did put people in a dilemma. Wang Lu was silent. Looking at the increasingly meaningful smile on Xia's face, his heart gradually became angry. Wang Lu was a person who, most of the time, was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. If he treated him with sincerity, unless there was a contradiction that couldn't be reconciled, otherwise, Wang Lu would always leave some leeway. However, right now, Xia's seemingly soft but actually hard attitude provoked Wang Lu. "Interesting, you want to play tricks with me? Are you sure?" However, before Wang Lu could take action, he heard Xiao Qi's compassionate sigh from behind him. "If you really have sincerity, why be generous at other people's expense? You also have eyes. Why don't you dig out your own eyes?" While speaking, Xiao Qi, holding the Buddhist staff, stepped forward a few steps. That thick Buddhist staff emitted a soft golden light. Under the light, Wang Lu only felt a burst of warmth from the bottom of his heart. He could not help but be surprised. "Seventh Madam, you." The next moment he couldn't speak. Just as Xiao Qi took a few steps forward, the woman's figure became infinitely tall. Her purple robe, along with the Buddhist staff, emitted a soft Zen light. She raised her hands and feet, petals fluttered, and the Zen sound lingered in the air. Around the woman, it was as if there were hundreds of arhats chanting sutras in unison. The momentum was vast, and the faint power was irresistible. "What a poor child." Xiao Qi looked at the cat-eared girl with infinite compassion. Then he stretched out his Buddhist staff. His speed seemed slow, but it was actually fast, and it could not be resisted at all. The crystallized cat's eye stone suddenly rotated. From its angular appearance, it gradually swelled up, and a moment later, it turned into a watery mass. At this point, even the mysterious Xia's face showed great surprise. Ling Yan's right eye was removed by a secret technique, crystallized, and turned from a living thing to a dead thing. But Xiao Qi's Zen light could bring a dead person back to life, turning a dead thing back to life. It could be said to be a magical skill. "Go." Xiao Qi sighed. His Buddhist staff slightly trembled, and the eyeball in Ling Yan's palm turned into a swift light and flew into the eye patch. The girl cried out in surprise, and then took off the eye patch. A quick-witted eye rolled, clear as ever. Really a good trick. Wang Lu was simply amazed. How could he not see the difficulty of petrifying a cat's eye into a cat's eye? Moreover, Xiao Qi was just a doppelganger. Her magical power realm was only the middle level of King Pill. Although the Buddhist staff in her hand was a spiritual treasure, it was far from enough to create such a miracle. What was magical was not the Buddhist staff, but Shao-Chi. Using the King Pill realm to turn the dead into life meant that she had comprehended the way of reincarnation, which was the great Tao that many great cultivators of Zen sect failed to comprehend. Sure enough, the person who could be friends with his master was by no means an ordinary person. And Shao-Chi's move, in addition to showing her amazing strength, also resolved a Xia's trick. Your eyeball, I will return it to you. If you want to reconcile, please give me a new price tag. And Shao-Chi had just said that if she was sincere, she should dig out her own eye. Shao-Chi was still holding the Buddhist staff. The Zen light around her was still there, and the Zen sound did not stop. However, the benevolence of all living beings had disappeared without a trace. The woman coldly stared at a Xia, seemingly waiting for him to dig out his own eye. Zen Master Guru had the means of a Zen master, but she didn't have the compassion of a Zen master. When she was in a bad mood, she could eat thousands of spirit dogs on the Grand Cloud Mountain. Similarly, she didn't mind digging out the eyeball of a sinister person. A Xia sighed. This is really embarrassing. It seems that today's visit is not the right time. Let's meet again next time. Wanna leave? Wang Lu raised his eyebrows. Holding the sword of Mount Cohen, he took a step forward. Completely disregarding the insurmountable gap between the middle level of Foundation establishment and the middle level of King Pill, he made the first move. A Xia's complexion was dignified. Of course, he didn't care about Wang Lu's plain sword thrust. Even without the constraint of the big heart demon oath, Wang Lu's attack power was still appalling. However, at this time, Wang Lu was not alone. When he thrust his sword forward, the naive girl behind him, though she didn't know the reason, moved one step faster than Wang Lu. The same sword thrust, but Lu Li's attack could not be ignored. Even though the distance between high-level Foundation establishment and middle-level Jindan was like the distance between heaven and earth, Brilliant Sword Heart was like the bridge between heaven and earth. With this sword thrust, a Xia felt that his whole body's magical power was faintly shaken. If he wanted to take it head-on, although it was not that he couldn't take it, but considering that the opposite party still had the unfathomable Zen method of Zen Master Dog Meat, a Xia decided to escape. A Xia and Ling Yan came together, so naturally, they wouldn't leave alone. A Xia stepped back. His body had already lit up with the floating light of the escape technique. He reached out to grab Ling Yan, but Ling Yan was a bit slow and didn't immediately follow him. However, at this time, Lu Li's sword suddenly changed its momentum and slashed in front of Ling Yan. A Xia's eyebrows twitched, and the connection between him and Ling Yan was cut off. The next moment, the floating light on his body flashed. Although his body was teleported away by a spell, in a twinkling of an eye, he was already dozens of miles away. A certain cat-eared girl was left behind. It was almost the same tactic as the one used to deal with Chi Ho. The only difference was that at that time, she left behind a skull that only had a commemorative value. This time, she left behind a peak level of King Pill pet. Looking at the cowering Ling Yan, no matter who it was difficult to associate her with the overbearing elder from a few days ago. Chapter 189. Shao-Chi, Wang Lu, and Lu Li, the three of them joined forces to stop a Xia's right-hand man, making that gloomy middle-aged cultivator return in low spirits, thus winning a glorious victory. To sum it up simply, it was probably this sentence. Then, the three of them looked at the spoils of their glorious victory in silence. Ling Yan was surrounded by the three of them. The beard on her cheeks constantly trembled, unable to conceal the high tension and fear in her heart. Her cultivation base was the highest among them. Her peak King Pill cultivation base was even far beyond Shao-Chi's. Moreover, Wang Lu and Lu Li were left far behind. It was reasonable to say that she alone could easily defeat the three of them. However, she was very clear that if they really fought, the three of them would only need 1 or 2 moves to take her life. Although this place was still within the boundary of the Grand Cloud Mountain, there was no array that she was familiar with. Without the array to extract the spiritual energy from the feng shui line, or even the power of the entire Grand Cloud Mountain, she didn't think that she could defeat Zen Master Guru solely by relying on her magical power cultivation base. Not to mention those two foundation establishment cultivators were far more powerful than they looked. More importantly, in the face of the woman who made her write, "I see the light again," Ling Yan's heart was indescribably complicated. Perhaps when a Xia reached out his hand to beckon her to leave, that moment of stagnation came from this. However, in the face of the present situation, the girl's heart was at a loss as to what to do next. So, what should we do next? Xiao Qi also didn't have any idea. Therefore, he bluntly asked for help from Wang Lu, who always had too many ideas. Wang Lu crossed his arms and looked at the seemingly 12 or 13 years old cat-eared girl in front of him. How about we do some perverted things to her? If it was someone else who said this, Xiao Qi would most likely just treat it as a verbal cannonball. However, since it was Wang Lu who said it, Xiao Qi held his monk staff and half-warned, "Hey, in any case, you're also a person with prestige." Wang Lu also said, "Therefore, perverted things must be done quietly. She's a Beast Master School Division Elder. Although she looks a bit weak, she's still stronger than that muscular trash called Chiho. Maybe we can find some important clues from her, so I suggest that we use a perverted method to torture her." Xiao Qi asked, "I can understand interrogation and torture, but why do you have to emphasize perverts?" Wang Lu said matter-of-factly, "No matter what I do to a girl who looks like she's only 12 or 13 years old, I'll look like a pervert. So I might as well do it openly. As expected of your master's disciple. What a perverted and honorable person." Fortunately, the cat-eared girl didn't really have to wait for Wang Lu to use any kind of insane martial arts. She confessed everything in detail, and the process was a complete mess. In this regard, Ling Yan's explanation was also particularly convincing. "I can't go back, and I don't want to go back." Having seen a Xia's method of taking out the eyeball, it was not difficult to understand Ling Yan's defection. After all, cats were never known for their loyalty. After defecting, Ling Yan had a bit of self-abandonment. There were a lot of things that Wang Lu didn't ask, but she already confessed herself, including the great cause that Tiger King and the other elders conspired here, which was the news about the immortal beast Moon Spirit. The information about the immortal beast was first obtained by chance when we were in the Southern Heaven region. Although our Beast Master School is not good at divination, we are particularly sensitive to the news related to spirit beasts. Therefore, in recent years, in the 9 regions, there are basically Beast Master School's shadow in the events related to rare spirit beasts. This was completely in line with the understanding of Wang Lu and the others, so they nodded to show their acceptance. However, immortal beast, even in the vast 9 regions, is rarely seen in 100 years. Therefore, there is a great controversy about this in the sect. First, the location of the immortal beast is in the Cloud region, not within the sphere of influence of the Beast Master School. Second, it's just the result of a divination, which is not enough to win people's trust. Therefore, in the end, only the radical sect elder, Tiger King Lei Zhen, led his people from the Southern Heaven region. For this reason, he paid a great price. Basically, it's impossible for us to return to the Southern Heaven region. However, when we entered the Grand Cloud Mountain, we found out that this bet was probably right. There are indeed traces of the immortal beast on the Grand Cloud Mountain. Moreover, it's the precious young immortal beast. Wait a minute. Xiao Qi interrupted. What is the origin of that immortal beast? Before we actually catch it, we can't be sure. However, according to the current situation, we can infer that the young immortal beast should be a natural variant. It's the spirit of creation of all living things on the Grand Cloud Mountain, born from the moonlight. Therefore, we call it the moon spirit. Wang Lu recalled what he learned in the Tongue Cloud Hall in the past and confirmed it with Ling Yan's statement. There was no contradiction. Most of the immortal beasts in the 9 regions were not the result of the reproduction of normal creatures, but were born from the creation of heaven and earth. Because they possessed the characteristics of a certain spirit beast, they were classified as immortal beasts. For example, before the Age of Chaos, there was an immortal beast that jumped out from a stone. It was born with magical ability and was incomparably powerful. Because it looked like a spirit monkey, it was honored as the Monkey King. As for this immortal beast on the Grand Cloud Mountain, although no one could see its appearance with their own eyes, Beast Master School had been tracking it for a long time and had determined that it should be a spirit dog. Therefore, they collected the spirit of thousands of dogs and created a special beast collar to suppress dogs, trying to force the immortal beast out. Of course, in addition to this, Beast Master School had been chasing the immortal beast on the Grand Cloud Mountain for more than a year and had mastered a lot of information. This information was not enough to help them catch the moon spirit, but in the hands of Wang Lu and the others, it might have an unexpected magical use. From my memory, this is the map of the moon spirit's whereabouts that was jointly deduced by several elders. As Ling Yan spoke, her white and tender little hand drew a line in front of her, drawing out a translucent map of the Grand Cloud Mountain. Within it, red lines marked the moon spirit's whereabouts. Although it is an immortal beast, although it is the spirit of all living things, since it is a living creature, it must abide by the laws of living creatures. From the time its spiritual sense became clear until now, the time absolutely did not exceed 10 years. Therefore, even though it has the aptitude of an immortal beast, its strength is still very limited. In addition, in this past year, it was tired of escaping from our pursuit and had no time to cultivate, so its strength is very limited. Until now, it has not been able to transform. Using the standard of human cultivation, it is below the king pill. As Ling Yan spoke, she gradually recovered some of the imposing manner of someone at the peak of the king pill. When she mentioned the moon spirit, it was as if she was talking about a bird in a cage. She didn't care that in terms of origin, the moon spirit was much higher than her, a spirit cat. Because its strength is insufficient, its movements are greatly restricted. Even though it has magical ability and can repeatedly escape from our pursuit, after a year, we still found many patterns. Within this 500 li of the Grand Cloud Mountain, there are several places where the probability of it appearing is higher. Wang Lu earnestly looked at the map and asked, "The nodes of the feng shui line?" Then, without waiting for Ling Yan to confirm, he continued to infer, "Yes, it should be like this. It is the spirit of all living things in the Grand Cloud Mountain. Before it transforms, it cannot leave the Grand Cloud Mountain, just like a baby cannot leave the restraint of the umbilical cord. And it can, with its shoot-on stage, play around with more than 10 of your Beast Master School Division's King Pill disciples and a Yuanying stage cultivator." Obviously, this is also because the entire Grand Cloud Mountain is helping it. But this kind of help is also traceable. In the final analysis, it is the nodes of the feng shui line. You are also clear about this point, but the Grand Cloud Mountain is a place that can breed immortal beasts. The changes of the feng shui line are mysterious and strange. It is absolutely not something that you group of beast tamers can grasp. Therefore, even if you know that the immortal beast's whereabouts are related to the feng shui line, you still can't catch it. You can only draw a few approximate locations and try your luck. While speaking, Wang Lu raised his head and glanced at the amazed cat girl Ling Yan. "Is that right?" Ling Yan suppressed the amazement in her heart. Just now, that inference was indeed correct. Moreover, that was the answer that the Beast Master School Division's elders had painstakingly looked through the information for several days. Unexpectedly, this seemingly young cultivator was actually so familiar with the immortal beasts and the feng shui line, easily grasping it at his fingertips. Of course, in the eyes of Wang Lu, Ling Yan's amazement was like a stupid beast that couldn't understand the realm of a top student. Then, since there is a ready-made result, Wang Lu said, calculating on the map and confirming a few points, "There is no harm in taking advantage of the time to try our luck." As a quasi-immortal beast, Quan Zhouhua had a resonance with the moon spirit. Previously, it was deliberately avoided by the other party, so they couldn't meet. However, if they could grasp the moon spirit's trajectory, they could wait for it to come to them, guarding the other party's path, and when the time came, coupled with their resonance, it would be difficult not to meet them. In accordance with the location delineated by Wang Lu, the group quickly adjusted their direction and trekked through the mountains and rivers. The radius of 500 miles around Grand Cloud Mountain was not vast, but walking on the territory that the Beast Master School had been operating for more than a year, their speed naturally couldn't be fast. Xiao Qi took the lead with her staff in hand, using her unique spell to cover their tracks. Wang Lu followed closely behind, chatting with her from time to time. Xiao Qi casually asked, "By the way, do you really believe that catgirl's words? I thought you've always been a person who doesn't believe others." Wang Lu looked back at the cat girl, who was happily talking with Lu Li, and asked rhetorically, if she lied, wouldn't the price be too tragic? If things change, I guarantee that she will be the first to die. Xiao Qi gently nodded and flatly described a simple fact. Wang Lu said, therefore, no matter what, she's still a Peak King pill cultivator. Using her life as a bait is a bit too extravagant. Xiao Qi also agreed. Previously, she said that she doesn't want to go back, that she can't go back. I can hear it. It's so easy to change sides. Should I say that she's indeed a treacherous official? And to be able to expose Ling Yan's treacherous official's character, that a Xia really has a skill. Xiao Qi's face sank. That person is not simple. I can see that, a middle-level King Pill Beast Tamer who can play with the Peak King Pill Cat Girl in the groin. How could he be a simple person? I believe that groin was just a slip of the tongue, right? No, I did it on purpose. Wang Lu said, stopped, looked around, and said, we're almost there. Xiao Qi was a bit curious. We're almost there? As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Qi felt the ground beneath his feet begin to tremble slightly. A moment later, the trembling rapidly expanded, and the mountains began to shake. The surrounding mountains began to rise rapidly, forming precipitous cliffs that caused one's heart to palpitate. Not long after, the few of them were surrounded by a layer of cage-like mountain peaks. The 5 mountain broken veins technique was used for the second time. Wang Lu didn't even bother to look at a Xia who was standing on the top of the mountain. He just said to Xiao Qi, now, we can let that cat die in front of us. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.